The ancient world was a tapestry of mighty empires and flourishing civilizations, each weaving their own threads into the grand narrative of human history. From the bustling trade networks that connected distant shores to the magnificent palaces that housed powerful rulers, the Late Bronze Age represented a pinnacle of ancient achievement. Yet beneath this veneer of stability and prosperity, forces were gathering that would fundamentally reshape the known world. These forces would emerge not from the familiar corridors of established power, but from the mysterious depths of the Mediterranean Sea itself. Around the year 1200 BCE, as the sun set on what we now call the Late Bronze Age, a series of catastrophic events began to unfold across the eastern Mediterranean. Great cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to ash and rubble. Trade routes that had carried precious goods for generations fell silent. Entire civilizations that had seemed invincible suddenly collapsed into fragments. At the heart of this upheaval were mysterious raiders who struck from the waves with devastating effectiveness, leaving destruction in their wake before vanishing back into the maritime realm from whence they came. Welcome to Obscure Histories, where we explore the forgotten chapters and enigmatic figures that shaped our ancient past. Today, we embark on a journey to uncover one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries, the identity and origins of the Sea Peoples. These enigmatic warriors and wanderers emerged from the Mediterranean waters during one of history's most turbulent periods, wielding bronze weapons and sailing ships that would forever alter the balance of power in the ancient world. The very term Sea Peoples reflects the fundamental mystery that surrounds these ancient groups. No inscription from their time actually uses this designation. Instead, it was coined by French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero around 1881, based on ancient Egyptian records that describe these invaders as coming from the sea or from the islands without ever specifying which sea or which islands. This vagueness has tantalized scholars for over a century, creating one of archaeology's most compelling puzzles. The story of how we came to know about the Sea Peoples begins not in ancient times, but in the scholarly pursuits of 19th century Egyptologists. Emmanuel de Rouget, curator of the Louvre, first identified these mysterious groups in 1855 while studying hieroglyphic texts and photographs of Egyptian temple reliefs. Working from images captured by photographer John Beasley Green, de Rouget examined the battle scenes carved into the second pylon at Medinet Habu, the mortuary temple of Pharaoh Rameses III. There, among the depicted prisoners and conquered peoples, he noticed references to groups described as peoples of the sea. This initial discovery opened a window into a forgotten chapter of ancient history. The reliefs at Medinet Habu, with their intricate carvings and detailed inscriptions, provided the first glimpse into a series of conflicts that had raged across the eastern Mediterranean over 3 millennia ago. These weren't merely artistic representations of generic enemies, but specific historical records battles against of real identifiable groups of invaders. The temple walls served as both monument and historical document, preserving the memory of encounters that had tested the very survival of ancient Egypt. The scale and scope of these invasions, as described in the Egyptian sources, suggests something far more significant than typical raiding or piracy. According to the inscriptions at Medinet Habu, during the 8th year of Rameses III's reign, a coalition of foreign peoples who had originated on the islands in the middle of the sea launched a coordinated assault against Egypt. This wasn't a single battle or isolated incident, but rather part of a broader movement of peoples that had already devastated much of the known world. The Egyptian records paint a picture of unprecedented destruction across the eastern Mediterranean. The inscriptions describe how entire lands were removed and scattered to the fray, with no kingdom able to withstand the onslaught of these maritime invaders. The great powers of the day, the Hittite Empire, the kingdoms of Syria and Anatolia, the trading cities of the Levantine coast, all fell before this mysterious coalition. Cities that had flourished for centuries were abandoned, their populations either destroyed or dispersed to unknown fates. What makes these accounts particularly compelling is their contemporary nature. These weren't legends or myths passed down through generations of storytellers, but first-hand records carved in stone during or shortly after the events they describe. The scribes and artists who created these monuments were documenting recent history, preserving the memory of conflicts that had directly threatened their own civilization. Their detailed descriptions of weapons, ships, clothing, and battle tactics provide invaluable insights into both the invaders and the military technology of the Late Bronze Age. The Sea Peoples were not a single unified group, but rather a confederation of distinct tribes and peoples, each with their own characteristics and possibly different origins. Egyptian sources identify at least 9 separate groups within this coalition: the Peleset, Cheka, Shekelesh, Sherdan, Luka, Denyen, Teresh, Weshesh, and Ekwesh. Each name represents a different people with their own culture, traditions, and material remains that archaeologists continue to study today. Among these groups, the Sherdans stand out as particularly well documented in Egyptian records. They appear in sources spanning multiple pharaonic reigns, suggesting either repeated encounters or ongoing relationships between Egypt and this particular Sea People group. The reliefs at Medinet Habu depict Sherdan warriors with distinctive characteristics that set them apart from other ancient Mediterranean peoples. They carried round shields and wielded spears, dirks, or swords of advanced design. Their most distinctive feature was their horned helmets, often adorned with circular decorations at the crest, making them instantly recognizable in Egyptian art. The Sherdans' appearance in Egyptian sources predates the Grecians of Invas, the 12th century BCE. Earlier pharaohs had encountered these people, sometimes as enemies, sometimes as mercenaries fighting alongside Egyptian forces. This complex relationship suggests that the Sea People's phenomenon wasn't simply a sudden eruption of violence, but rather the culmination of longer-term population movements and political changes across the Mediterranean world. Another crucial group among the Sea Peoples were the Peleset, whose significance extends far beyond their role in the Bronze Age collapse. Archaeological and linguistic evidence strongly suggests that the Peleset were the ancestors of the biblical Philistines, making them perhaps the only Sea People group whose descendants we can identify with reasonable certainty. Their settlement in the southern Levant after their conflicts with Egypt would have profound implications for the later history of the region, influencing the development of Israelite civilization and leaving their mark on the cultural landscape of ancient Palestine. The material evidence left behind by these various Sea People groups reveals a sophisticated understanding of both warfare and maritime technology. Their ships, as depicted in Egyptian reliefs, show innovative designs that distinguish them from contemporary naval vessels. While Egyptian ships relied on both sails and oars for propulsion, Sea People vessels appear to have depended primarily on sail power, suggesting advanced knowledge of wind patterns and navigation techniques. This maritime expertise would have been essential for coordinating the kind of large-scale movements described in Egyptian sources. On land, the Sea Peoples demonstrated military innovations that gave them significant advantages over their opponents. Their chariots, while similar in basic design to those used by Egyptians and other Mediterranean peoples, featured a crucial modification. They carried 3 warriors instead of the typical 1 or 2. This additional manpower per chariot would have provided greater firepower and tactical flexibility in battle, helping to explain their success against established military powers. The weapons and armor depicted in Egyptian reliefs reveal a people well versed in the military technologies of their time. Bronze swords, spears with leaf-shaped points, and protective gear that included both leather and metal components all speak to a warrior culture that had adapted the best military innovations of the late Bronze Age. Some of their weapons appear to be of the advanced Naue II type, representing cutting-edge metallurgical technology that gave them a significant advantage over opponents using older weapon designs. The timing of the Sea People's emergence coincides with what historians call the Late Bronze Age collapse, a period of widespread societal breakdown that affected much of the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. This collapse wasn't a single event, but rather a cascade of interconnected crises that unfolded over several decades around 1200 BCE. Advanced civilizations with extensive trade networks, complex political institutions, and magnificent architectural achievements found themselves unable to cope with the mounting pressures of environmental change, internal strife, and external invasion. Recent scientific research has revealed that climate change played a crucial role in creating the conditions that led to both the Bronze Age collapse and the Sea People's movements. Analysis of tree rings from the Anatolian heartland of the Hittite Empire shows that the region suffered severe drought conditions in 1198, 1197, and 1196 BCE, precisely at the beginning of the collapse period. These weren't ordinary dry years that agricultural societies could weather, but prolonged drought conditions that fundamentally disrupted food production across the region. The environmental crisis extended far beyond simple rainfall patterns. Sediment cores from the Mediterranean and Near East reveal significant climatic shifts during the late 13th and early 12th centuries BCE, with reduced precipitation affecting agricultural productivity throughout the region. For civilizations dependent on grain production and trade, these environmental changes created cascading effects that undone food shortages, lamed political stability and economic prosperity to social unrest. Weakened governments struggled to maintain control over distant territories, and populations began to move in search of more favorable conditions. Within this context of environmental stress and political upheaval, the Sea People's movements take on new significance. Rather than simple raiders seeking plunder, they may have represented entire populations displaced by the changing climate and seeking new homes in more favorable regions. The Egyptian inscriptions support this interpretation, describing not merely military expeditions, but the movement of large populations, including families and entire communities traveling by both land and sea. The palace economy system that characterized late Bronze Age civilizations made them particularly vulnerable to the kind of disruption the Sea Peoples represented. These societies concentrated wealth and resources in centralized bureaucracies before redistributing them according to royal priorities, a system that primarily benefited elite classes while creating dependencies throughout the population. When external pressures disrupted trade networks and agricultural production, the entire system became vulnerable to cascading failures that could bring down entire civilizations. The interconnected nature of late Bronze Age societies meant that the collapse of one major power had ripple effects throughout the region. The destruction of the Hittite Empire, for example, didn't just affect Anatolia, but disrupted trade relationships and political alliances that stretched from the Black Sea to the Nile Delta. As each civilization fell or weakened, it became easier for the Sea Peoples to continue their advance, gathering momentum and resources as they moved through the chaos they had helped to create. Here at Obscure Histories, we'll continue our exploration of these mysterious peoples in the next installment, where we'll delve deeper into the specific encounters between the Sea Peoples and the great pharaohs of Egypt. We'll examine the military tactics, naval battles, and political maneuvering that characterize these conflicts, and explore what happened to the various Sea People groups after their moment on history's stage had passed. The confrontations between Egypt and the Sea Peoples represent some of the most dramatic military encounters recorded in ancient history, preserved in remarkable detail through the monumental inscriptions and reliefs that adorn Egyptian temple walls. These weren't merely skirmishes or border raid-scale invasions, but fullions that tested the very foundations of pharaonic power and forced Egyptian rulers to marshal every resource at their disposal to preserve their ancient civilization. The first major recorded encounter occurred during the reign of Pharaoh Merneptah, son and successor of the legendary Ramesses the Great. In the 5th year of his reign, around 1208 BCE, Merneptah faced a coordinated assault that brought together various Sea People groups in alliance with Libya's tribal confederations. This wasn't a spontaneous uprising, but rather a carefully orchestrated campaign that threatened to overwhelm Egypt's western deft, potentially ences and reach the fertile Nile Delta itself. The scale of this invasion was unprecedented in Egyptian experience. Merneptah's inscriptions describe enemy forces numbering in the tens of thousands, including not just warriors, but entire families and communities moving across the Mediterranean in search of new lands to settle. The pharaoh's records speak of capturing over 6,000 prisoners and seizing vast quantities of livestock, weapons, and other possessions that the invaders had brought with them. This evidence suggests that the Sea Peoples weren't simply conducting military raids, but were attempting large-scale migration and permanent settlement. Merneptah's response demonstrated the sophisticated military organization that had made Egypt a dominant power for over a millennium. The pharaoh mobilized forces from throughout his kingdom, bringing together infantry units, chariot squadrons, and auxiliary troops in a coordinated defense that ultimately repelled the invasion. His victory inscriptions, carved into temple walls at Karnak and other sites, provide detailed accounts of the battle tactics employed and the various enemy groups encountered. The Egyptian records from this period reveal fascinating details about the military technology and fighting methods of the Sea Peoples. Their warriors employed a combination of traditional Mediterranean weapons and innovative tactical approaches that caught their opponents off guard. Egyptian artists depicted Sea People fighters wielding bronze swords of advanced design, carrying distinctive shields, and wearing armor that incorporated both metal and leather components for maximum protection and mobility. Perhaps most intriguingly, the Sea Peoples demonstrated naval capabilities that rivaled or exceeded those of any contemporary Mediterranean civilization. Their ships, as rendered in Egyptian reliefs, featured design innovations that suggested extensive maritime experience and sophisticated understanding of naval warfare. These vessels could carry substantial numbers of warriors while maintaining the speed and maneuverability necessary for successful amphibious operations against fortified coastal positions. The second great confrontation occurred during the reign of Rameses III, approximately 30 years after Merneptah's victory. By Sea Peoples had already this time devastated much of the eastern Mediterranean, leaving a trail of destroyed cities and collapsed kingdoms in their wake. The Hittite Empire had fallen, the trading great centers of Syria lay in ruins, and even the mighty fortresses of Anatolia had been overwhelmed by these mysterious invaders. Ramesses III's records describe the approaching threat in apocalyptic terms, speaking of lands being removed and scattered to the fray, with no kingdom able to withstand the Sea People's advance. The pharaoh's inscriptions at Medinet Habu paint a picture of coordinated destruction that had swept across the known world, bringing down civilizations that had endured for centuries and threatening to engulf Egypt itself in the same catastrophic collapse. The preparation for this second invasion required unprecedented mobilization of Egyptian resources. Rameses III fortified the Nile Delta, established defensive positions along the Syrian frontier, and assembled both land and naval forces for what he clearly recognized as a fight for Egypt's survival. The pharaoh's strategic planning demonstrated remarkable foresight, as he anticipated that the Sea Peoples would attempt both overland and seaborne attacks against Egyptian territory. The climactic encounter occurred in what historians now call the Battle of the Delta, fought around 1175 BCE near the mouths of the Nile River. This engagement represents one of the earliest well-documented naval battles in human history, providing invaluable insights into ancient maritime warfare and the tactical innovations that characterized Sea People military doctrine. Rameses III's strategy for the naval engagement showed considerable tactical sophistication. Rather than meeting the Sea People's fleet in open water, the pharaoh lured the enemy ships into the confined waters of the Nile Delta, where Egyptian advantages in local knowledge and prepared positions could offset the invaders' superior seamanship. The Egyptian king had positioned archers along the shoreline, creating overlapping fields of fire that could devastate vessels attempting to land troops or supplies. The battle itself, as depicted in the detailed reliefs at Medinet Habu, reveals the ferocity and desperation of this final confrontation. Sea People warriors fought with the courage of men who had nowhere left to retreat, while Egyptian defenders battled to preserve a civilization that had endured for over 2 millennia. The artistic representations show ships locked in combat, warriors falling into the water, and the chaos of ancient naval warfare rendered in stunning detail. Egyptian victory in the Battle of the Delta marked a crucial turning point in the Sea People's expansion across the Mediterranean. For the first time since their emergence as Força Major, these mysterious invaders had encountered organized resistance capable of stopping their advance. Ramesses III's triumph preserved Egypt from the fate that had befallen the Hittites, Mycenaeans, and other great powers of the Late Bronze Age. However, victory came at a tremendous cost that would have lasting implications for Egyptian civilization. The resources required to mobilize for defense against the Sea Peoples strained the kingdom's economy and administrative capacity. The disruption of trade networks throughout the Eastern Mediterranean deprived Egypt of valuable commodities and commercial relationships that had sustained pharaonic prosperity for generations. The aftermath of these great conflicts saw significant changes in both Egyptian society and the broader Mediterranean world. While Ramesses III had successfully defended his kingdom, the effort had weakened Egypt's ability to project power beyond its borders. The pharaoh's successors would find themselves ruling over a diminished realm, unable to maintain the extensive international influence that had characterized earlier periods of Egyptian greatness. Meanwhile, the defeated Sea Peoples didn't simply vanish from history following their military setbacks. Various groups settled in different regions throughout the Eastern Mediterranean, adapting to local conditions and gradually integrating with existing populations. Some became mercenaries in the service of various kingdoms, their military skills making them valuable allies despite their previous role as invaders. The Peliset, identified with the later Philistines, established themselves along the southern Levantine coast, creating a series of city-states that would play crucial roles in the subsequent history of the region. Archaeological evidence from sites like Ashkelon and Gaza reveals how these former Sea Peoples adapted to their new circumstances, developing distinctive cultural traditions that blended their maritime heritage with local Canaanite influences. Recent genetic research has provided remarkable confirmation of the Sea Peoples' European origins, at least for some groups. DNA analysis of remains from Philistine sites has revealed European ancestry that wasn't present in earlier Bronze Age populations of the Levant. This scientific evidence represents the first concrete proof of large-scale migration from Europe to the Eastern Mediterranean during the Sea Peoples period. Interestingly, the genetic studies also show how quickly these immigrant populations integrated with local communities. Within just a few generations, the distinctive European genetic markers had largely disappeared from the archaeological record, diluted through intermarriage with Levantine populations. This pattern suggests that, while the Sea Peoples maintained their cultural identity for centuries, they also adapted rapidly to their new environments through social and biological integration. The question of Sea Peoples' origins remains one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries, with scholars proposing various theories based on linguistic, archaeological, and genetic evidence. Some researchers argue for connections to specific regions like Sardinia, Sicily, or the Greek mainland, while others suggest a more complex pattern of population movements involving multiple source areas throughout the Mediterranean. The Sherdan, for example, have been tentatively linked to the Nuragic civilization of Sardinia based on similarities in material culture and the presence of Sardinian pottery at Eastern Mediterranean sites during the Late Bronze Age. Archaeological excavations have revealed Nuragic ceramics at locations as distant as Cyprus and Crete, suggesting extensive maritime connections between Sardinia and the Eastern Mediterranean world. Similar connections have been proposed for other Sea People groups, with the Luca possibly originating from the Lycian coast of Anatolia and the Teresh, potentially representing ancestors of the Etruscans. These identifications remain tentative, however, as the archaeological and textual evidence often permits multiple interpretations. Here at Obscure Histories, we find ourselves confronting the fundamental challenge that has frustrated scholars for over a century. The Sea Peoples left no written records of their own, forcing us to reconstruct their story from the perspectives of their enemies and victims. This limitation means that crucial questions about their motivations, internal organization, and ultimate fate may never be fully answered. What emerges from the available evidence is a picture of remarkable adaptability and resilience. The Sea Peoples successfully navigated the collapse of the Bronze Age world, not merely surviving the chaos, but actively participating in the transformation of Mediterranean civilization. Their military innovations, maritime expertise, and cultural flexibility enabled them to thrive during one of history's most turbulent periods. The legacy of the Sea Peoples extends far beyond their immediate historical impact. Their role in the Bronze Age collapse helped create the conditions that would give rise to new civilizations and cultural traditions throughout the Mediterranean world. The political vacuum left by the fall of great empires like the Hittites created opportunities for smaller kingdoms and city-states to develop their own distinctive identities. In our next exploration, we'll examine the broader implications of the Sea Peoples phenomenon for our understanding of ancient migration, cultural change, and the complex processes that drive historical transformation. We'll investigate how their story connects to larger patterns of climate change, technological innovation, and social adaptation that continue to shape human civilization today. The evidence left behind by the Sea Peoples reveals a complex tapestry of cultural exchange and technological innovation that fundamentally altered the Mediterranean world. Archaeological discoveries across dozens of sites have uncovered artifacts, architectural features, and artistic motifs that demonstrate how these maritime peoples didn't simply conquer and destroy, but actively participated in creating new synthetic cultures that blended traditions from across the known world. Excavations at sites associated with Sea People settlements reveal sophisticated understanding of metallurgy and craftsmanship that exceeded many contemporary civilizations. Bronze workshops discovered in former Sea People territories show evidence of advanced techniques for producing weapons, tools, and decorative objects. The quality of metalwork found at these sites suggests that Sea People communities included skilled artisans who had mastered the most advanced bronze working techniques of their era. Pottery remains provide particularly valuable insights into Sea People cultural practices and trade relationships. Ceramic vessels discovered at sites throughout the Eastern Mediterranean display distinctive decorative motifs and construction techniques that can be traced to Sea People influence. These aren't crude utilitarian objects, but sophisticated works that demonstrate aesthetic sensibilities and technical expertise developed over generations of maritime culture. The architectural evidence reveals equally impressive capabilities. Fortifications, residential structures, and public buildings constructed by Sea People communities show familiarity with advanced construction techniques and urban planning principles. Their settlements weren't temporary encampments, but permanent communities designed for long-term occupation and growth. The layout of these settlements suggests social organization that balanced military necessity with commercial and domestic requirements. Religious and ceremonial artifacts discovered at Sea People sites provide glimpses into their spiritual beliefs and ritual practices. Votive offerings, ceremonial vessels, and religious symbols reveal a complex pantheon that incorporated elements from various Mediterranean traditions while maintaining distinctive characteristics. These findings suggest that Sea People communities developed syncretic religious systems that helped integrate diverse populations under unified cultural frameworks. The linguistic evidence, though fragmentary, offers additional clues about Sea People origins and cultural development. Place names, personal names, and scattered vocabulary preserved in various ancient sources suggest connections to multiple language families and geographic regions. This linguistic diversity supports theories that the Sea Peoples represented coalitions of groups from different areas rather than single unified populations. Trade networks established by Sea People communities extended far beyond their immediate territories and the entire, creating commercial relationships that span the Mediterranean basin. Archaeological evidence reveals the movement of goods, technologies, and ideas across vast distances, suggesting that these former raiders had transformed themselves into successful merchants and cultural intermediaries. Their maritime expertise, gained through years of naval warfare, proved invaluable for developing new trading routes and commercial partnerships. The transformation of Sea People communities from raiders to settlers illustrates remarkable adaptability in the face of changing circumstances. Rather than maintaining nomadic lifestyles indefinitely, these groups recognized opportunities for permanent settlement and actively worked to establish stable communities. This transition required developing new skills in agriculture, urban administration, and diplomatic relations with neighboring peoples. Agricultural innovations introduced by Sea People settlers had lasting impacts on Mediterranean farming practices. Archaeological evidence suggests they brought new crop varieties, cultivation techniques, and livestock management practices from their regions of origin. These agricultural innovations helped increase food production and supported population growth in areas that had been devastated by earlier conflicts. The social structures that emerged in Sea People communities reflect creative solutions to the challenges of integrating diverse populations with different cultural backgrounds. Archaeological and textual evidence suggests these societies developed flexible hierarchies that could accommodate various ethnic groups while maintaining overall unity and direction. Leadership positions appear to have been based on merit and achievement rather than hereditary status, allowing capable individuals from any background to advance within community structures. Marriage practices and family organization in Sea People communities show evidence of deliberate policies designed to promote integration with local populations. The genetic evidence we discussed earlier demonstrates how quickly Sea People groups intermarried with existing communities, suggesting conscious strategies for building alliances and ensuring long-term survival. These marriage alliances created kinship networks that extended far beyond individual settlements, providing mutual support and cooperation across wide geographic areas. Educational and cultural transmission practices developed by Sea People communities ensured the preservation of their distinctive traditions, while allowing for adaptation to new environments. Archaeological evidence suggests these societies invested considerable resources in training young people in specialized skills like seamanship, metalworking, and warfare. This emphasis on education helped maintain cultural continuity across generations while enabling communities to respond effectively to changing circumstances. The military organization that had made the Sea Peoples such formidable opponents during their expansion phase evolved into more defensive and peacekeeping functions once settlements were established. Former warriors became guardians of trade routes, protectors of agricultural communities, and enforcers of legal agreements between different groups. This transformation of military capabilities into civil functions demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how to maintain social order in diverse communities. Diplomatic relations between Sea People settlements and established kingdoms reveal considerable political sophistication. Rather than maintaining hostile relationships indefinitely, Sea People leaders actively sought accommodation with former enemies when such arrangements served mutual interests. Treaties, trade agreements, and military alliances created webs of relationships that helped stabilize the post-Bronze Age Mediterranean world. The legal systems developed in Sea People communities combined elements from various traditions to create new frameworks for resolving disputes and maintaining order. Archaeological evidence suggests these societies developed innovative approaches to property rights, commercial law, and criminal justice that reflected their unique circumstances as immigrant populations establishing new homes in foreign territories. Here at Obscure Histories, we find the Sea People's story particularly compelling because it demonstrates how crisis and disruption can lead to creative adaptation and cultural innovation. Rather than simply destroying the civilizations they encountered, these mysterious peoples ultimately contributed to the emergence of new cultural syntheses that would shape Mediterranean development for centuries to come. The technological innovations associated with Sea People communities extended beyond military applications to include advances in shipbuilding, navigation, and maritime commerce. Their vessels incorporated design features that improved both speed and cargo capacity, enabling more efficient transport of goods and people across the Mediterranean. These improvements in naval technology had lasting impacts on Mediterranean trade and cultural exchange. Ironworking technology appears to have spread more rapidly in regions influenced by Sea People settlements, suggesting these communities played important roles in the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. Archaeological evidence indicates that Sea People metalworkers were among the first to master iron production techniques and to recognize the superior qualities of iron tools and weapons. Their adoption and refinement of iron technology gave them significant advantages over communities still dependent on bronze implements. The artistic traditions that developed in Sea People communities created distinctive styles that combined elements from multiple cultural sources. Decorative motifs, sculptural techniques, and architectural features found at Sea People sites show creative synthesis of influences from across the Mediterranean world. These artistic innovations contributed to the development of new aesthetic traditions that would influence regional cultures for generations. Urban planning concepts introduced by Sea People settlers incorporated lessons learned from their experiences with both warfare and peaceful commerce. Their settlements featured defensive capabilities when necessary, but also emphasized commercial districts, residential areas, and public spaces designed to accommodate diverse populations. This balanced approach to urban design created communities that could adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining internal cohesion. The agricultural systems established by Sea People communities incorporated both traditional Mediterranean practices and innovations brought from their regions of origin. Terracing techniques, irrigation methods, and crop rotation practices found at Sea People sites suggest sophisticated understanding of sustainable farming methods. These agricultural innovations helped support larger populations and created surpluses that could be traded with practices developed by Sea People traders' neighboring communities. Commercial established new standards for Mediterranean commerce that emphasized reliability, quality, and fair dealing. Their reputation for honesty in business transactions helped overcome initial suspicions about dealing with former raiders. This transformation from feared warriors to trusted merchants illustrates the remarkable adaptability that characterized Sea People communities. The educational institutions that emerged in Sea People settlements emphasized practical skills needed for success in their new environments. Training programs for young people included instruction in languages, navigation, crafts, and diplomatic protocols. This comprehensive approach to education ensured that Sea People communities could maintain their competitive advantages while adapting to local conditions. Religious practices in Sea People communities evolved to incorporate local deities and traditions while maintaining connections to their ancestral beliefs. This religious syncretism helped facilitate integration with existing populations while preserving distinctive cultural identities. The flexibility demonstrated in religious matters reflects broader patterns of adaptability that characterize Sea People responses to new circumstances. The legal frameworks developed by Sea People communities addressed unique challenges faced by immigrant populations establishing permanent settlements in foreign territories. Their legal codes balanced traditional practices with practical necessities, creating systems that could resolve disputes between different ethnic groups while maintaining overall community cohesion. These legal innovations influenced the development of law in many Mediterranean regions. Political structures that emerged in Sea People settlements reflected lessons learned from both their nomadic past and their settled present. Leadership positions combined military, commercial, and administrative responsibilities, creating unified command structures that could respond effectively to various challenges. This integration of different leadership functions helped ensure coordinated responses to both opportunities and threats. The legacy of Sea People innovation extends far beyond their immediate historical period, influencing developments in technology, commerce, politics, and culture throughout the Mediterranean world. Their story demonstrates how periods of apparent chaos and destruction can ultimately lead to creative adaptation and cultural renewal. The Sea Peoples transformed themselves from agents of destruction into builders of new civilizations, leaving lasting impacts that would shape Mediterranean development for centuries to come. In our continuing exploration of these remarkable peoples, we'll next examine how their descendants and cultural heirs influenced the emergence of classical Mediterranean civilizations, tracing connections between Sea People innovations and later developments in Greek, Roman, and other ancient societies that would ultimately shape the foundations of Western civilization itself. The maritime networks established by Sea People communities created unprecedented opportunities for cultural and technological exchange across the Mediterranean basin. Archaeological evidence reveals that their vessels trading carried far more than simple commercial goods, serving as conduits for the transmission of ideas, artistic techniques, and technological innovations that would fundamentally reshape ancient Mediterranean civilization. These networks operated with remarkable efficiency, connecting distant regions that had previously maintained only sporadic contact. The navigational expertise developed by Sea People mariners represented a quantum leap forward in ancient maritime capabilities. Their understanding of seasonal wind patterns, ocean currents, and celestial navigation enabled voyages that would have been impossible for earlier Mediterranean peoples. Astronomical instruments and navigation aids discovered at Sea People sites demonstrate sophisticated mathematical knowledge that rivaled contemporary achievements in Egypt and Mesopotamia. This expertise allowed them to establish regular sailing schedules and maintain reliable communication between distant settlements. Harbour construction techniques pioneered by Sea People engineers created new standards for Mediterranean port development. Their harbours incorporated advanced understanding of tidal patterns, storm protection, and cargo handling efficiency. Archaeological excavations at former Sea People ports reveal sophisticated docking facilities, warehouses, and administrative buildings that facilitated large-scale commercial operations. These innovations enabled the growth of trade volumes that exceeded anything seen during the Bronze Age. The diplomatic protocols developed by Sea People leaders for managing relationships with diverse neighbouring peoples became models for international relations throughout the ancient Mediterranean. Their approach emphasized mutual benefit, cultural respect, and practical cooperation rather than simple domination or submission. Treaty documents preserved in various archives reveal sophisticated understanding of international law and diplomatic procedure that influenced diplomatic practices for centuries after the Sea People's initial emergence. Currency systems and commercial standards introduced by Sea People traders helped standardize Mediterranean commerce and reduce transaction costs across vast distances. Their development of reliable weight and measure standards, quality certification procedures, and dispute resolution mechanisms created frameworks for trust that enabled unprecedented expansion of trade networks. These commercial innovations reduced the risks associated with long-distance trading and encouraged greater investment in maritime commerce. The technological workshops established in Sea People settlements became centers of innovation that attracted craftsmen and inventors from throughout the Mediterranean world. These facilities combined traditional techniques with experimental approaches that produced breakthrough developments in metallurgy, ceramics, textiles, and other industries. The collaborative environment fostered by these workshops encouraged cross-cultural exchange of technical knowledge and accelerated the pace of technological advancement. Military engineering innovations developed by Sea People communities extended far beyond weapon design to include advances in fortification construction, siege techniques, and battlefield logistics. Their understanding of combined arms tactics, naval land coordination, and rapid deployment capabilities influenced military doctrine throughout the Mediterranean region. These innovations helped establish new standards for military effectiveness that shaped warfare for generations. Agricultural experimentation conducted in Sea People settlements produced new crop varieties and farming techniques that increased productivity and expanded the range of cultivatable lands. Their systematic approach to plant breeding, soil management, and pest control created agricultural surpluses that supported population growth and freed resources for other activities. These agricultural advances contributed to the economic prosperity that enabled Sea People communities to invest in cultural and technological development. The educational systems that evolved in Sea People communities emphasized practical skills and adaptive thinking that prepared individuals for success in rapidly changing environments. Their curriculum included training in multiple languages, cross-cultural communication, and flexible problem-solving approaches. This educational philosophy produced generations of leaders who could navigate complex political and commercial relationships across diverse Mediterranean cultures. Here at Obscure Histories, we recognize that the Sea People's greatest achievement may have been their ability to transform destruction into construction, using their experiences with conflict and displacement to build more resilient and adaptable societies. Their story illustrates how human communities can respond creatively to existential challenges and emerge stronger than before. Religious innovations that emerged in Sea People communities created new forms of worship that appealed to diverse populations while maintaining spiritual coherence. Their development of inclusive religious practices that honored multiple traditions simultaneously provided models for religious tolerance that influenced later Mediterranean civilizations. These spiritual innovations helped bind together ethnically diverse communities and created shared identities that transcended tribal boundaries. The artistic traditions that flourished in Sea People settlements combined aesthetic elements from across the Mediterranean world to create distinctive new styles. Their artists and craftsmen developed innovative techniques for working with bronze, ceramics, textiles, and precious materials that produced works of exceptional beauty and technical sophistication. These artistic achievements influenced regional aesthetic development and contributed to the cultural richness that characterized later Mediterranean civilizations. Legal innovations developed by Sea People communities addressed unprecedented challenges posed by governing ethnically diverse populations with different cultural backgrounds and legal traditions. Their legal codes balanced competing claims and interests while maintaining social order and promoting economic development. These legal frameworks provided models for multicultural governance that influenced political development throughout the Mediterranean region. Urban planning concepts pioneered in Sea People settlements created new standards for city design that balanced military security with commercial efficiency and residential comfort. Their cities incorporated advanced water management systems, waste disposal facilities, and public spaces that supported both economic activity and community life. These urban innovations influenced city planning throughout the ancient Mediterranean and contributed to the development of classical urban civilization. The commercial practices developed by Sea People traders established new standards for business ethics and commercial reliability that enhanced trust in Mediterranean markets. Their emphasis on honoring contracts, providing quality goods, and maintaining fair prices created reputations that enabled them to develop long-term business relationships across cultural boundaries. These commercial innovations contributed to the growth of Mediterranean trade and the development of market-based economies. Manufacturing techniques refined in Sea People workshops produced goods of exceptional quality that commanded premium prices in Mediterranean markets. Their mastery of production processes, quality control methods, and product innovation enabled them to compete successfully with established manufacturing centers. These industrial capabilities provided economic foundations that supported the cultural and political achievements of Sea People communities. The transportation networks developed by Sea People communities connected previously isolated regions, and created new opportunities for cultural and economic exchange. Their road systems, port facilities, and communication networks enabled rapid movement of people, goods, and information across vast distances. These infrastructure investments supported economic growth and political integration that strengthened Sea People settlements and their allies. Scientific knowledge accumulated by Sea People scholars through their extensive travels and cultural contacts advanced understanding in fields ranging from astronomy and mathematics to medicine and natural history. Their systematic approach to gathering and preserving knowledge created libraries and educational institutions that served as centers of learning for the broader Mediterranean world. These intellectual achievements contributed to the foundation of classical Mediterranean scholarship. The political institutions that evolved in Sea People communities balanced democratic participation with effective leadership in ways that enabled responsive governance of diverse populations. Their governmental structures incorporated representation for different ethnic groups while maintaining unified decision-making capabilities. These political innovations influenced the development of governmental systems throughout the Mediterranean region. Social customs and cultural practices that developed in Sea People communities created frameworks for peaceful coexistence among diverse populations with different traditions and backgrounds. Their emphasis on mutual respect, cultural exchange, and shared prosperity provided models for multicultural society that influenced social development across the Mediterranean world. These cultural innovations helped establish foundations for the cosmopolitan civilizations that would characterize later Mediterranean history. The technological legacy left by Sea People innovations extended far beyond their immediate historical period to influence developments in engineering, manufacturing, and scientific investigation for centuries afterward. Their systematic approach to problem-solving and technological development established methodologies that continue to generate new discoveries and inventions long after the original Sea People communities had been absorbed into larger civilizations. Economic theories and practices developed by Sea People communities created new understanding of market dynamics, resource allocation, and wealth creation that influenced commercial development throughout the Mediterranean region. Their insights into supply and demand relationships, investment strategies, and risk management provided foundations for more sophisticated economic systems that supported the growth of classical Mediterranean civilizations. The environmental management practices developed by Sea People settlements demonstrated sophisticated understanding of sustainable resource use and ecological balance. Their approaches to forestry, fisheries management, and agricultural sustainability provided models for environmental stewardship that enabled long-term prosperity without degrading natural resources. These environmental innovations contributed to the ecological health that supported Mediterranean civilization for centuries. Cultural preservation efforts undertaken by Sea People communities ensured that valuable traditions and knowledge from their diverse backgrounds were maintained even as new synthetic cultures emerged. Their systematic approach to recording and transmitting cultural information created archives and educational programs that preserved important elements of Mediterranean cultural heritage. These preservation efforts contributed to the rich cultural foundations that characterize later Mediterranean civilizations. The diplomatic networks established by Sea People leaders created unprecedented opportunities for peaceful resolution of conflicts and cooperative approaches to shared challenges. Their emphasis on negotiation, mediation, and mutual accommodation provided alternatives to warfare that enabled Mediterranean peoples to focus resources on productive activities rather than destructive conflicts. These diplomatic innovations influenced international relations throughout the ancient world. Military reforms implemented by Sea People communities created more effective and humane approaches to warfare that reduced civilian casualties while maintaining defensive capabilities. Their emphasis on professional training, disciplined conduct, and strategic thinking produced military forces that could defend their communities without becoming sources of oppression or instability. These military innovations influenced the development of military institutions throughout the Mediterranean region. The architectural achievements of Sea People builders created new standards for construction that combined aesthetic appeal with practical functionality and structural integrity. Their buildings incorporated advanced engineering principles and innovative design concepts that influenced architectural development across the Mediterranean world. These architectural innovations contributed to the physical infrastructure that supported classical Mediterranean civilization. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to marvel at how the Sea Peoples managed to transform themselves from harbingers of destruction into architects of renewal, demonstrating humanity's remarkable capacity for adaptation and creative response to existential challenges. Their story reminds us that even the most catastrophic historical events can ultimately lead to positive transformations that benefit future generations. The intellectual achievements of Sea People scholars and thinkers contributed to the development of philosophical and scientific traditions that would influence Mediterranean thought for centuries. Their systematic approaches to understanding natural phenomena, human behavior, and social organization provided foundations for more sophisticated intellectual traditions that characterized later classical civilizations. These intellectual contributions helped establish the rational inquiry methods that became hallmarks of Mediterranean scholarship. Commercial law innovations developed by Sea People legal scholars created frameworks for regulating complex business relationships that spanned multiple jurisdictions and cultural boundaries. Their legal codes addressed unprecedented challenges posed by international commerce and provided models for commercial regulation that influenced legal development throughout the Mediterranean region. These legal innovations supported the growth of sophisticated market economies that characterized later Mediterranean civilizations. The maritime technologies perfected by Sea People shipbuilders and navigators enabled exploration and colonization efforts that expanded the known world and created new opportunities for cultural and commercial exchange. Their advances in ship design, navigation techniques, and maritime logistics provided capabilities that supported Mediterranean expansion into previously unknown regions. These technological achievements contributed to the geographical knowledge that enabled later Mediterranean civilizations to develop global perspectives. Agricultural sciences, developed by Sea People farmers and researchers, produced new understanding of plant biology, soil chemistry, and ecological relationships that increased food production and improved nutritional outcomes. Their systematic approach to agricultural experimentation and their careful documentation of results created knowledge bases that supported agricultural development throughout the Mediterranean region. These scientific achievements contributed to the food security that enabled population growth and cultural development in later Mediterranean civilizations. The legacy of Sea People achievements extends far beyond their immediate historical context to influence the development of Mediterranean civilization in ways that continue to shape our world today. Their story demonstrates how human communities can respond creatively to catastrophic challenges and transform apparent disasters into opportunities for growth and renewal. The Sea Peoples remind us that even in humanity's darkest hours, the seeds of future greatness often lie hidden within present struggles. The philosophical frameworks that emerged from Sea People intellectual communities created new approaches to understanding the relationship between individual identity and collective belonging that would profoundly influence Mediterranean thought. Their scholars grappled with fundamental questions about how diverse peoples could maintain their distinctive characteristics while participating in unified political and social structures. The solutions they developed emphasize flexibility, mutual respect, and shared purpose rather than rigid conformity to single cultural models. These intellectual achievements reflected the unique circumstances of Sea People communities, which had necessarily developed practical wisdom about managing cultural diversity and social cohesion. Their thinkers drew upon experiences from multiple cultural traditions to create synthetic philosophical approaches that could address the complex challenges facing their societies. The resulting intellectual frameworks provided foundations for more sophisticated political theory and social philosophy that would influence Mediterranean development for centuries. Archaeological evidence suggests that Sea People intellectual centers attracted scholars and students from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating cosmopolitan learning environments that fostered cross-cultural exchange of ideas and methodologies. These institutions combined theoretical investigation with practical application, ensuring that intellectual achievements could be translated into tangible improvements in community life. The collaborative atmosphere of these centers encouraged innovative thinking and creative problem-solving approaches. The mathematical and scientific knowledge accumulated by Sea People scholars through their extensive commercial and diplomatic networks enabled breakthrough developments in engineering, astronomy, and natural philosophy. Their systematic approach to gathering and analyzing information from diverse sources created comprehensive databases of knowledge that exceeded anything previously available in the Mediterranean world. This scientific foundation supported technological innovations that enhanced both military capabilities and civilian prosperity. Medical practices developed by Sea People healers combined therapeutic traditions from multiple cultures with empirical observation and systematic experimentation. Their physicians maintained detailed records of treatments and outcomes, creating medical knowledge that could be transmitted to future generations and shared with other communities. These medical advances contributed to improved health outcomes and longer life expectancy in Sea People settlements, supporting population growth and community stability. The metallurgical expertise that had initially given Sea People warriors their military advantages evolved into sophisticated industrial capabilities that produced goods of exceptional quality for both domestic use and international trade. Their workshops developed innovative alloy formulations, advanced smelting techniques, and precision manufacturing methods that set new standards for metalworking throughout the Mediterranean region. These industrial capabilities provided economic foundations that supported cultural and political achievements. Production innovations pioneered, textile-led by Sea People craftsmen created new materials and decorative techniques that influenced fashion and artistic expression across the Mediterranean world. Their mastery of dyeing processes, weaving patterns, and fabric treatments produced textiles that were both beautiful and durable, commanding premium prices in international markets. These textile innovations contributed to the economic prosperity that enabled Sea People communities to invest in cultural development and public works. The cartographic knowledge accumulated by Sea People navigators through their extensive voyaging activities created the most accurate maps and geographical descriptions available in the ancient Mediterranean. Their systematic recording of coastal features, navigational hazards, and seasonal conditions produced navigational aids that enabled safer and more efficient maritime travel. This geographical knowledge supported the expansion of trade-related cultural exchange across networks and facilitated vast distances. Here at Obscure Histories, we find particularly fascinating how Sea People communities managed to maintain their distinctive identities while simultaneously Mediterranean cultural contributing to broader development. Their success in balancing cultural preservation with adaptive valuable insights into how societies can respond effectively to rapidly changing circumstances while maintaining essential continuity. The architectural styles that developed in Sea People settlements created new aesthetic traditions that combined functional ways that influenced building efficiency with artistic beauty in design throughout the Mediterranean region. Their architects developed innovative structural techniques, decorative motifs, and spatial arrangements that reflected both practical needs and cultural values. These architectural achievements created physical environments that supported community life while expressing collective identity and aspirations. Agricultural innovations introduced by Sea People farmers included new irrigation systems, crop rotation methods, and animal husbandry practices that increased productivity and sustainability. Their systematic approach to agricultural experimentation produced knowledge about soil management, plant breeding, and pest control that benefited farming communities throughout the Mediterranean region. These agricultural advances supported population growth and economic development that enabled investment in cultural and technological progress. The legal institutions that evolved in Sea People communities created new approaches to justice that balanced individual rights with collective welfare in ways that promoted social stability and economic growth. Their legal codes addressed complex issues arising from cultural diversity, commercial relationships, and territorial disputes while maintaining flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. These legal innovations influenced the development of jurisprudence throughout the Mediterranean world. Trade relationships established by Sea People merchants created new patterns of commercial exchange that connected previously isolated regions and facilitated the spread of goods, technologies, and ideas across vast distances. Their trading networks operated with remarkable efficiency, maintaining reliable schedules and quality standards that encouraged investment and expansion. These commercial achievements supported economic growth throughout the Mediterranean region and contributed to the prosperity of later civilizations. The diplomatic achievements of Sea People leaders demonstrated sophisticated understanding of international relations and conflict resolution that enabled peaceful coexistence among diverse peoples with potentially conflicting interests. Their approach to diplomacy emphasized mutual benefit, cultural respect, and practical cooperation rather than domination or submission. These diplomatic innovations created frameworks for international cooperation that influenced political development throughout the Mediterranean world. Military reforms implemented by Sea People commanders created more effective approaches to defense and security that protected communities while minimizing the social costs of military preparedness. Their emphasis on professional training, strategic thinking, and disciplined conduct produced military forces that could defend their territories without becoming sources of internal oppression or external aggression. These military innovations influenced the development of military institutions across the Mediterranean region. The educational systems that flourished in Sea People communities emphasized practical skills and critical thinking that prepared individuals for success in complex, multicultural environments. Their curriculum included training in languages, cultural customs, technical skills, and leadership capabilities that enabled graduates to contribute effectively to community development. These educational innovations produced generations of capable leaders who could navigate the challenges facing their societies. Religious practices that evolved in Sea People communities created inclusive spiritual frameworks that honored diverse traditions while maintaining community cohesion and share. Their approach purpose to religion emphasized personal spiritual development, community service, and cultural tolerance rather than rigid doctrinal conformity. These religious innovations contributed to the social stability and cultural richness that characterize Sea People settlements conducted by Sea People scholars, advanced understanding investigations. Scientific in fields ranging from astronomy and mathematics to medicine and natural history through systematic observation and experimentation. Their research methods combined theoretical analysis with practical application, producing knowledge that could be used to improve community life. These scientific achievements contributed to the intellectual foundations that supported later Mediterranean scholarly traditions. The technological workshops established in Sea People settlements became centers of innovation that attracted craftsmen and inventors from throughout the Mediterranean world, fostering collaborative environments that encouraged experimentation and creative problem-solving. Their facilities combined traditional techniques with innovative approaches that produced breakthrough developments in manufacturing, construction, and transportation. These technological achievements provided competitive advantages that supported Sea People prosperity and influence. Economic theories developed by Sea People merchants and administrators created new understanding of market dynamics, resource allocation, and wealth creation that influenced commercial practices throughout the Mediterranean region. Their insights into supply and demand relationships, investment strategies, and risk management provided foundations for more sophisticated economic systems. These economic innovations supported the growth of market-based economies that characterized later Mediterranean civilizations. The cultural institutions that emerged in Sea People communities created new forms of artistic expression, intellectual inquiry, and social organization that enriched Mediterranean civilization and provided models for later development. Their emphasis on creativity, excellence, and cultural exchange fostered environments where human potential could flourish. These cultural achievements contributed to the richness and diversity that would characterize classical Mediterranean civilization. Urban planning concepts pioneered in Sea People settlements created new standards for city design that balanced economic efficiency with social welfare and environmental sustainability. Their cities incorporated advanced infrastructure systems, public amenities, and residential districts that supported both commercial activity and community life. These urban innovations influenced city planning throughout the ancient Mediterranean and contributed to the development of sophisticated urban civilizations. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to be impressed by the Sea People's ability to transform catastrophic circumstances into opportunities for creative innovation and cultural development. Their story demonstrates how human communities can respond to existential challenges not merely by surviving, but by emerging stronger and more capable than before. Environmental management practices developed by Sea People communities demonstrated sophisticated understanding of ecological relationships and sustainable resource use that enabled long-term prosperity without environmental degradation. Their approaches to forestry, fisheries management, and land use planning provided models for environmental stewardship that supported community development while preserving natural resources. These environmental innovations contributed to the ecological health that sustained Mediterranean civilizations for centuries. The transportation networks established by Sea People engineers created unprecedented opportunities for rapid movement of people, goods, and information across vast distances, facilitating commercial growth and cultural exchange. Their road systems, port facilities, and communication networks incorporated advanced engineering principles and logistical planning that set new standards for infrastructure development. These transportation achievements supported economic integration and political cooperation throughout the Mediterranean region. Manufacturing techniques, refined in Sea People workshops, produced goods of exceptional quality that commanded premium prices in international markets while supporting local employment and skill development. Their mastery of production processes, quality control methods, and product innovation enabled them to compete successfully with established manufacturing centers. These industrial capabilities provided economic foundations that supported the cultural and political achievements of Sea People communities. Social customs and cultural practices that developed in Sea People communities created frameworks for peaceful coexistence among diverse populations with different backgrounds and traditions. Their emphasis on mutual respect, cultural learning, and shared prosperity provided models for multicultural society that influenced social development across the Mediterranean world. These cultural innovations helped establish foundations for the cosmopolitan civilizations that would characterize later Mediterranean history. The maritime expertise that had initially enabled Sea People military campaigns evolved into sophisticated commercial and exploratory capabilities that expanded geographical knowledge and created new opportunities for trade and settlement. Their advances in shipbuilding, navigation, and maritime logistics enabled voyages to previously unknown regions and established regular commercial routes across vast oceanic distances. These maritime achievements contributed to the geographical expansion that characterized later Mediterranean development. Political institutions that evolved in the Sea People settlements created new models for democratic participation and effective governance that balanced representation with efficiency in ways that enabled responsive leadership of diverse populations. Their governmental structures incorporated mechanisms for citizen participation while maintaining unified decision-making capabilities. These political innovations influenced the development of governmental systems throughout the Mediterranean region and contributed to the democratic traditions that would emerge in later civilizations. The intellectual legacy left by Sea People scholars and thinkers extended far beyond their immediate historical context to influence philosophical, scientific, and cultural development throughout the Mediterranean world for centuries afterward. Their systematic approaches to knowledge creation, preservation, and transmission established methodologies that continue to generate new discoveries and insights long after the original Sea People communities had been absorbed into larger civilizations. Legal frameworks developed by Sea People jurists addressed unprecedented challenges posed by governing ethnically diverse populations while maintaining social order and promoting economic development. Their legal codes balanced competing interests and cultural mechanisms for dispute traditions while providing resolution and social coordination. These legal innovations provided models for multicultural governance that influenced political and legal development throughout the Mediterranean region. The agricultural sciences advanced by Sea People researchers produced new understanding of plant biology, soil management, and ecological relationships that increased food production and improved nutritional outcomes for their communities. Their systematic approach to agricultural experimentation and documentation created knowledge bases that supported agricultural development throughout the Mediterranean region. These scientific achievements contributed to the food security that enabled population growth and cultural development in later Mediterranean civilizations. Commercial practices established by Sea People traders created new standards for business conduct and market operation that enhanced trust and efficiency in Mediterranean commerce. Their emphasis on contract fulfillment, product quality, and fair dealing created reputations that enabled them to develop lasting business relationships across cultural boundaries. These commercial innovations supported the growth of sophisticated market economies that would characterize later Mediterranean civilizations. Here at Obscure Histories, we recognize that the Sea People's most enduring contribution may have been their demonstration that human societies can successfully navigate periods of catastrophic change through adaptive innovation and cultural creativity. Their transformation from agents of destruction into builders of new civilizations provides hope and inspiration for contemporary societies facing their own existential challenges. The artistic traditions that flourished under Sea People patronage created new aesthetic forms that combined elements from multiple cultural sources to produce distinctive styles that influenced regional artistic development for centuries. Their artists and craftsmen developed innovative techniques for working with various materials while creating works that expressed both individual creativity and collective identity. These artistic achievements enriched Mediterranean cultural life and contributed to the aesthetic traditions that would characterize classical civilizations. Technological innovations pioneered by Sea People engineers and inventors advanced understanding in fields ranging from mechanics and metallurgy to architecture and transportation, producing practical applications that improved quality of life for their communities. Their systematic approach to technological development established research methodologies that continued to generate new discoveries long after their original inventors had passed from the scene. These technological achievements provided foundations for the engineering capabilities that supported later Mediterranean civilizations. The diplomatic networks established by Sea People leaders created unprecedented opportunities for peaceful cooperation and conflict resolution among diverse Mediterranean peoples, demonstrating alternatives to warfare that enabled societies to focus resources on productive rather than destructive activities. Their approach to international relations emphasized mutual benefit and cultural exchange rather than domination or exploitation. These diplomatic innovations influenced international cooperation throughout the ancient world and provided models for peaceful coexistence. Religious innovations that emerged in Sea People communities created inclusive spiritual practices that honored diverse traditions while building community cohesion and shared purpose among ethnically diverse populations. Their approach to religious life emphasized personal spiritual development and community service, rather than rigid doctrinal conformity. These religious achievements contributed to the spiritual foundations that supported social stability and cultural development in Sea People settlements and influenced religious practices throughout the Mediterranean region. The educational institutions that developed in Sea People communities established new standards for learning that emphasized practical skills, critical thinking, and cross-cultural understanding, preparing individuals for success in complex, multicultural environments. Their educational philosophy produced graduates capable of contributing effectively to community development while maintaining appreciation for cultural diversity and human potential. These educational innovations influenced scholarly development throughout the Mediterranean world and contributed to the intellectual foundations of later civilizations. The Sea People's remarkable journey from mysterious raiders to sophisticated civilization builders demonstrates the extraordinary capacity of human communities to transform themselves in response to changing circumstances. Their story continues to provide valuable insights into processes of cultural adaptation, technological innovation, and social development that remain relevant for understanding how societies can successfully navigate periods of rapid change and uncertainty. The systematic documentation practices developed by Sea People scholars created comprehensive archives that preserved knowledge from their extensive travels and cultural encounters, establishing libraries that became centers of learning for the broader Mediterranean world. These repositories contain detailed records of geographical features, trade routes, diplomatic agreements, and technological innovations gathered from across the known world. The meticulous approach to knowledge preservation demonstrated by these communities reflected their understanding that information itself represented a form of wealth that could provide competitive advantages for generations to come. Medical knowledge accumulated by Sea People healers through their interactions with diverse cultures produced sophisticated understanding of anatomy, pharmacology, and therapeutic techniques that advanced healthcare throughout the Mediterranean region. Their physicians maintained detailed case studies documenting symptoms, treatments, and outcomes, creating medical databases that could be consulted for future cases. This empirical approach to medicine, combined with their access to healing traditions from multiple cultures, enabled Sea People communities to achieve health outcomes that exceeded those of many contemporary civilizations. The astronomical observations conducted by Sea People navigators and scholars contributed to advances in calendar systems, seasonal prediction, and celestial navigation that supported both maritime activities and agricultural planning. Their systematic recording of stellar movements, planetary positions, and weather patterns created astronomical knowledge that proved invaluable for communities dependent on precise timing for both commercial voyages and agricultural activities. These scientific achievements reflected the practical orientation that characterized Sea People intellectual pursuits. Metallurgical innovations developed in Sea People workshops produced alloys and manufacturing techniques that represented significant advances over contemporary metalworking practices. Their smiths experimented with different combinations of metals and developed sophisticated heat treatment processes that created tools and weapons of exceptional durability and effectiveness. The quality of metalwork produced in these facilities commanded premium prices in Mediterranean markets while providing Sea People communities with superior equipment for both military and civilian applications. The linguistic achievements of Sea People communities, necessitated by their multicultural composition and extensive trade relationships, produced unprecedented expertise in translation and cross-cultural communication. Their scholars developed systematic approaches to language learning and created dictionaries and grammatical guides that facilitated communication across cultural boundaries. This linguistic expertise proved invaluable for diplomatic negotiations, commercial transactions, and cultural exchange activities that characterize Sea People interactions with neighboring civilizations. Here at Obscure Histories, We find particularly remarkable how Sea People communities managed to transform their initial disadvantages as displaced populations into competitive advantages that enabled them to thrive in their new environments. Their success demonstrates how necessity can drive innovation and how diverse experiences can provide unique perspectives that generate creative solutions to complex challenges. The construction techniques pioneered by Sea People builders incorporated lessons learned from their experiences with both temporary encampments and permanent settlements, creating architectural solutions that balance durability with adaptability. Their buildings could withstand natural disasters while accommodating expansion and modification as community needs evolved. These construction innovations reflected practical wisdom gained through generations of dealing with uncertainty and change. Water management systems developed by Sea People engineers demonstrated sophisticated understanding of hydraulic principles and environmental engineering that supported both urban development and agricultural productivity. Their irrigation networks, drainage systems, and water storage facilities incorporated innovative design features that maximized efficiency while minimizing maintenance requirements. These infrastructure investments provided foundations for sustainable community development that could support population growth and economic expansion. The textile production capabilities that flourished in Sea People workshops created distinctive fabrics and decorative techniques that influenced fashion trends throughout the Mediterranean world. Their weavers mastered complex patterns and dyeing processes that produced textiles of exceptional beauty and quality. The reputation of Sea People textiles in international markets provided significant revenue streams that supported community development and cultural activities. Mining and quarrying operations established by Sea People communities advanced extraction, utilized techniques and geological knowledge that enabled efficient exploitation of natural resources while minimizing environmental damage. Their understanding of ore deposits, stone formations, and extraction methods reflected both practical experience and systematic investigation. These resource extraction capabilities provided raw materials that supported manufacturing activities and generated trade revenues. The shipbuilding expertise that had initially enabled Sea People military campaigns evolved into sophisticated maritime industries that produced vessels for both commercial and exploratory purposes. Their shipyards incorporated advanced design principles and construction techniques that created ships capable of long-distance voyages while carrying substantial cargoes. These maritime capabilities enabled Sea People merchants to establish trade relationships across vast distances and contributed to their economic prosperity. Financial innovations developed by Sea People merchants created new approaches to banking, credit, and investment that facilitated large-scale commercial operations across multiple jurisdictions. Their understanding of currency exchange, risk assessment, and capital allocation enabled complex arrangements business that would have been impossible under simpler economic systems. These financial innovations supported the growth of sophisticated market economies throughout the Mediterranean region. The cultural festivals and ceremonial practices that emerged in Sea People communities created shared experiences that helped integrate diverse populations while celebrating their distinctive traditions. These celebrations combined elements from multiple cultural backgrounds to create new synthetic traditions that expressed collective identity while honoring individual heritage. The inclusive nature of these cultural practices contributed to social cohesion and community solidarity. Legal scholarship that flourished in Sea People settlements produced sophisticated jurisprudence that addressed complex issues arising from multicultural society and international commerce. Their legal scholars developed principles and procedures that balanced individual rights with collective welfare while providing mechanisms for peaceful dispute resolution. These legal achievements influenced the development of law throughout the Mediterranean world and provided foundations for more sophisticated legal systems. The philosophical traditions that emerged from Sea People intellectual communities grappled with fundamental questions about identity, belonging, and social organization that arose from their unique circumstances as multicultural societies. Their thinkers developed theoretical frameworks that could accommodate cultural diversity while maintaining social unity. These philosophical achievements contributed to broader Mediterranean intellectual development and influenced political theory for centuries. Agricultural research conducted by sea people farmers and scholars produced new understanding of plant genetics, soil chemistry, and ecological relationships that increased food production and improved crop quality. Their systematic approach to agricultural experimentation created knowledge that could be applied across different environmental conditions and cultural contexts. These scientific advances supported population growth and economic development throughout the Mediterranean region. The transportation innovations pioneered by sea people engineers included improvements in road construction, vehicle design, and logistics management that increased the efficiency of overland trade and communication. Their understanding of terrain challenges, load distribution, and route optimization enabled faster and more reliable transportation of goods and people across vast distances. These innovations contributed to economic integration and political manufacturing cooperation throughout the Mediterranean world. Standardization practices developed by sea people workshops created quality control systems that ensured consistent product specifications and performance characteristics. Their approach to production management established benchmarks for craftsmanship that influenced manufacturing practices throughout the Mediterranean region. These standards enabled sea people goods to compete successfully in international markets while building reputations for reliability and excellence. The diplomatic protocols that evolved from sea people interactions with diverse neighboring peoples created new models for international relations that emphasize mutual respect and practical cooperation. Their approach to diplomacy incorporated cultural sensitivity and flexible negotiation strategies that could accommodate different value systems and political structures. These diplomatic innovations influenced international cooperation throughout the ancient Mediterranean world. Military training programs established in sea people communities emphasized discipline, tactical flexibility, and ethical conduct that created professional military forces capable of defending their territories while maintaining positive relationships with civilian populations. Their approach to military education balanced martial skills with civic responsibility. These military innovations influenced the development of military institutions throughout the Mediterranean region and contributed to more effective and humane approaches to defense. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to marvel at how sea people communities managed to create positive outcomes from circumstances that initially appeared catastrophic. Their ability to transform displacement and conflict into opportunities for innovation and cultural development provides valuable lessons about human resilience and adaptability that remain relevant for contemporary societies facing their own challenges. Environmental monitoring practices developed by sea people communities enabled sustainable resource management that supported long-term prosperity without depleting natural resources or degrading ecological systems. Their systematic observation of environmental conditions and resource availability provided information necessary for making informed decisions about land use, extraction activities, and conservation measures. These environmental innovations contributed to the ecological health that sustained Mediterranean civilizations for centuries. The craft specialization that developed within sea people workshops created expertise in numerous technical fields that produced goods of exceptional quality while supporting skilled employment and knowledge transmission. Their artisans mastered complex techniques that required years of training and practice, creating products that commanded premium prices in international markets. These specialized capabilities provided competitive advantages that supported community prosperity and cultural development. Communication systems established by sea people communities enabled rapid transmission of information across vast distances through networks of messengers, signal stations, and standardized protocols. Their communication capabilities facilitated coordination of commercial activities, diplomatic negotiations, and military operations across multiple territories. These information networks contributed to the administrative efficiency that enabled Sea People communities to manage complex political and economic relationships. The scientific instruments and measurement tools developed by Sea People scholars and craftsmen advanced precision in fields ranging from navigation and astronomy to engineering and commerce. Their innovations in measurement technology enabled more accurate calculations and more reliable results in both theoretical investigations and practical applications. These technological achievements supported scientific advancement and commercial development throughout the Mediterranean world. Religious architecture that flourished in Sea People settlements created sacred spaces that accommodated diverse worship traditions while expressing community identity and spiritual aspirations. Their temples and ceremonial buildings incorporated design elements from multiple cultural sources while maintaining aesthetic coherence and functional effectiveness. These architectural achievements contributed to the spiritual life of their communities and influenced religious architecture throughout the Mediterranean region. The historical documentation practices maintained by Sea People scholars created detailed records of their community's development that provide valuable insights into processes of cultural adaptation and social transformation. Their chroniclers systematically recorded significant events, policy decisions, and cultural changes that occurred within their settlements. These historical records demonstrate the sophisticated understanding of their own historical significance that characterize Sea People intellectual life. Economic planning strategies developed by Sea People administrators enabled efficient allocation of resources and coordination of activities across multiple sectors of community life. Their approach to economic management balanced immediate needs with long-term development goals, while maintaining flexibility to respond to changing circumstances. These economic innovations provided foundations for sustained prosperity that supported cultural and technological advancement. The artistic patronage systems that emerged in Sea People communities created opportunities for creative expression while supporting the development of distinctive aesthetic traditions that reflected their multicultural heritage. Their approach to artistic sponsorship encouraged innovation and excellence while maintaining cultural continuity. These cultural investments enriched community life and contributed to the artistic heritage of the broader Mediterranean world. Legal enforcement mechanisms developed by Sea People communities balanced respect for individual rights with maintenance of social order through systems that emphasize rehabilitation and community service rather than simple punishment. Their approach to criminal justice reflected understanding that effective law enforcement required community support and voluntary compliance. These legal innovations influenced the development of more humane and effective approaches to maintaining social order. The technological transfer practices that characterize Sea People communities facilitated rapid dissemination of innovations and improvements throughout their networks, accelerating the pace of technological development and ensuring that beneficial discoveries could be widely applied. Their systematic approach to sharing technical knowledge created collaborative environments that encouraged continued innovation. These practices contributed to technological advancement throughout the Mediterranean world. Educational exchange programs that developed between Sea People settlements and neighboring communities created opportunities for cross-cultural learning that enriched intellectual life and promoted mutual understanding. Their commitment to educational cooperation reflected recognition that knowledge sharing benefited all participants while strengthening diplomatic relationships. These educational innovations contributed to the development of more sophisticated scholarly traditions throughout the Mediterranean region. The social welfare systems that evolved in Sea People communities provided support for vulnerable populations while maintaining incentives for productive contribution to community life. Their approach to social assistance balanced compassion with practical considerations about resource allocation and community sustainability. These social innovations created more stable and cohesive communities that could better withstand external pressures and internal challenges. Urban sanitation and public health measures implemented by Sea People settlements created healthier living conditions that supported population growth and reduced disease transmission. Their understanding of hygiene principles and waste management enabled them to maintain urban environments that promoted community well-being. These public health innovations contributed to the demographic expansion that characterized successful Sea People communities. The commercial law frameworks developed by Sea People legal scholars created reliable systems for regulating business relationships and resolving commercial disputes that facilitated trade growth and economic development. Their legal innovations addressed complex issues arising from international commerce, while providing mechanisms for fair and efficient dispute resolution. These commercial law developments influenced business practices throughout the Mediterranean world and supported the growth of sophisticated market economies. Here at Obscure Histories, we recognize that the Sea People's transformation from displaced refugees into successful community builders demonstrates the remarkable potential for human adaptation and creative response to adversity. Their story provides inspiration and practical insights for contemporary societies dealing with their own challenges related to migration, cultural integration, and sustainable development. The resource conservation practices implemented by Sea People communities demonstrated sophisticated understanding of sustainable development principles that enabled long-term prosperity without environmental degradation. Their approach to natural resource management balanced immediate needs with future requirements while maintaining ecological balance. These conservation innovations provided models for environmental stewardship that influenced resource management practices throughout the Mediterranean region. Conflict resolution mechanisms developed by Sea People leaders created alternatives to warfare that enabled peaceful settlement of disputes while maintaining community honor and dignity. Their approach to conflict management emphasized negotiation, mediation, and compromise rather than domination or submission. These diplomatic innovations influenced approaches to dispute resolution throughout the Mediterranean world and contributed to more stable international relationships. The cultural preservation efforts undertaken by Sea People communities ensured that valuable traditions and knowledge from their diverse backgrounds were maintained, even as new synthetic cultures emerged. Their systematic approach to documenting and transmitting cultural information created archives that preserved important elements of Mediterranean cultural heritage. These preservation efforts contributed to the cultural richness that characterized later Mediterranean civilizations. Scientific research methodologies developed by Sea People scholars establish systematic approaches to investigation understanding in numerous fields, while and experimentation that advance creating reliable knowledge that could be transmitted to future generations. Their emphasis on empirical observation and logical analysis provided foundations for more sophisticated scientific traditions. These methodological innovations influenced scholarly development throughout the Mediterranean world. The architectural engineering achievements of Sea People builders created structures that combined aesthetic appeal with structural integrity and functional efficiency in ways that influenced building practices throughout the Mediterranean region. Their innovations in construction techniques and design principles enabled them to create impressive buildings while optimizing resource use and construction time. These architectural achievements contributed to the physical infrastructure that supported Mediterranean civilization. Economic diversification strategies pursued by Sea People communities created resilient economies that could withstand external shocks while maintaining prosperity and growth. Their approach to economic development balanced different sectors and activities while building on their distinctive advantages in maritime commerce and technological innovation. These economic strategies provided models for sustainable development that influenced economic planning throughout the Mediterranean world. The cultural exchange programs that flourished in Sea People settlements created unprecedented opportunities for cross-cultural learning and artistic collaboration that enriched intellectual and creative life throughout the Mediterranean region. Their commitment to cultural dialogue reflected recognition that diversity could be a source of strength rather than division. These cultural innovations contributed to the cosmopolitan character that would define later Mediterranean civilizations. Military alliance systems developed by Sea People leaders created networks of mutual support that enabled smaller communities to maintain security while focusing resources on productive activities rather than defensive preparations. Their approach to military cooperation emphasized shared responsibility and mutual benefit rather than domination or subordination. These military innovations influenced strategic thinking throughout the Mediterranean world and contributed to more stable security arrangements. The technological innovation networks that emerged among Sea People communities facilitated rapid development and dissemination of new techniques and improvements that accelerated technological progress throughout their territories. Their collaborative approach to technological development created environments where innovation could flourish while ensuring that beneficial discoveries were widely shared. These innovation systems contributed to technological advancement across the Mediterranean region. Social integration practices developed by Sea People communities created frameworks for peaceful coexistence among diverse populations that honored different traditions while building shared identity and common purpose. Their approach to social cohesion balanced respect for cultural distinctiveness with promotion of community unity. These social innovations provided models for multicultural society that influenced social development throughout the Mediterranean world. The maritime commercial networks established by Sea People merchants created unprecedented opportunities for trade and cultural exchange that connected distant regions and facilitated economic growth throughout the Mediterranean basin. Their trading systems operated with remarkable efficiency while maintaining high standards for product quality and business ethics. These commercial achievements supported economic development across the entire Mediterranean region. Legal education institutions that developed in Sea People settlements created new approaches to legal training that emphasized practical skills and ethical reasoning while preparing legal professionals to serve diverse communities effectively. Their legal education programs combined theoretical knowledge with practical experience in ways that produce capable and ethical legal practitioners. These educational innovations influenced legal education throughout the Mediterranean world. Here at Obscure Histories, we find the Sea People's story particularly compelling because it demonstrates how human communities can transform apparent disasters into opportunities for growth and renewal. Their remarkable journey from displaced populations to successful civilization builders provides hope and inspiration for societies facing contemporary challenges related to displacement, cultural change, and sustainable development. The administrative systems that evolved in Sea People communities created efficient governmental structures that could coordinate complex activities while maintaining responsiveness to citizen needs and changing circumstances. Their approach to public administration balanced centralized coordination with local autonomy in ways that promoted both efficiency and democratic governmental participation. These administrative innovations influenced development throughout the Mediterranean region and contributed to more effective public institutions. Cultural synthesis processes that occurred within Sea People communities created new traditions and practices that combined elements from multiple sources while maintaining coherence and meaning for community members. Their approach to cultural development demonstrated how diversity could become a source of creativity and innovation rather than conflict and division. These cultural achievements contributed to the richness and vitality that characterize Mediterranean civilization. The philosophical inquiries pursued by Sea People intellectual communities addressed fundamental questions about human nature, social organization, and ethical behavior that arose from their unique experiences as multicultural societies. Their thinkers developed theoretical frameworks that could accommodate cultural diversity while providing guidance for individual and collective decision-making. These philosophical contributions influenced intellectual development throughout the Mediterranean world. Agricultural extension programs developed by Sea People farming communities, shared advanced techniques and knowledge with neighboring populations while promoting sustainable practices that could support long-term productivity. Their approach to agricultural development emphasized cooperation and knowledge sharing rather than competition and secrecy. These agricultural innovations contributed to food security throughout the Mediterranean region. The craft guild systems that emerged in Sea People settlements created organizational structures that supported skill development and quality control, while providing social support and economic security for artisans and their families. Their approach to craft organization balanced individual creativity with collective standards in ways that promoted both innovation and reliability. These organizational innovations influenced craft production throughout the Mediterranean world. Transportation planning initiatives undertaken by Sea People communities created integrated systems that efficiently moved people and goods while minimizing costs, development, consider, and environmental impact. Their approach to transportation both immediate needs and long-term sustainability while coordinating different modes of transport for maximum effectiveness. These infrastructure investments supported economic development throughout their territories. The scientific collaboration networks that developed among Sea People scholars facilitated research cooperation and knowledge sharing that accelerated scientific advancement while ensuring that discoveries could benefit multiple communities. Their approach to scientific development emphasized cooperation and open exchange of information, rather than secrecy and competition. These scientific innovations contributed to intellectual advancement throughout the Mediterranean region. Military engineering achievements of Sea People communities created defensive and logistical capabilities that provided security while supporting economic development and cultural activities. Their approach to military engineering balanced security requirements with civilian needs, while incorporating innovative technologies and strategic thinking. These military innovations influenced defense planning throughout the Mediterranean world. The environmental restoration projects undertaken by Sea People communities demonstrated sophisticated understanding of ecological principles and restoration techniques that could repair damaged ecosystems while supporting sustainable development. Their approach to environmental management needs with ecological requirements, while balanced human promoting long-term sustainability. These environmental innovations provided models for ecological stewardship throughout the Mediterranean region. Commercial arbitration systems developed by Sea People merchants created reliable mechanisms for resolving business disputes that facilitated trade growth while maintaining fair and efficient commercial relationships. Their approach to commercial dispute resolution emphasized expertise, impartiality, and practical solutions rather than prolonged litigation. These commercial innovations supported trade development throughout the Mediterranean world. The cultural documentation projects pursued by Sea People scholars created comprehensive records of their community's development that preserved valuable information about successful approaches to cultural integration and social adaptation. Their systematic approach to historical recording demonstrated recognition of their own historical significance and responsibility to future generations. These documentation efforts contributed to historical knowledge throughout the Mediterranean world. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to be impressed by the Sea People's ability to create positive outcomes from challenging circumstances through innovation, cooperation, and adaptive thinking. Their story provides valuable insights into how human communities can successfully navigate periods of rapid change while building foundations for long-term prosperity and cultural development. The educational methodologies that flourished within Sea People communities represented revolutionary approaches to knowledge transmission that would fundamentally reshape Mediterranean scholarly traditions. Rather than relying solely on rote memorization or apprenticeship systems common throughout the ancient world, these communities developed comprehensive curricula that emphasized critical thinking, practical application, and cross-cultural competency. Their educational institutions attracted students from across the known world, creating cosmopolitan learning environments where young scholars could engage with diverse intellectual traditions, while developing skills necessary for success in increasingly complex societies. The systematic approach to education adopted by Sea People communities reflected their understanding that knowledge itself represented a form of strategic resource that could provide competitive advantages across multiple generations. Their teachers developed innovative pedagogical techniques that combined theoretical instruction with hands-on experience, ensuring that students could apply abstract concepts to real-world situations. This practical orientation produced graduates who possessed both intellectual sophistication and pragmatic capabilities, enabling them to contribute effectively to community development while advancing their own personal aspirations. Archaeological evidence from Sea People educational sites reveals the remarkable sophistication of their learning facilities, which incorporated libraries, workshops, laboratories, and residential quarters designed to support intensive scholarly activity. These institutions maintained extensive collections of written materials gathered from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating repositories of knowledge that exceeded anything previously assembled in the ancient world. The careful organization and preservation of these collections demonstrated systematic approaches to information management that would influence scholarly practices for centuries. The linguistic programs developed within Sea People educational systems addressed the practical necessities of governing multicultural populations while conducting extensive international commerce. Students received intensive training in multiple languages, cultural customs, and diplomatic protocols that prepared them for careers in trade, administration, and international relations. This emphasis on cross-cultural competency reflected recognition that success in their interconnected world required sophisticated understanding of diverse perspectives and communication strategies. Mathematical and scientific instruction within Sea People institutions combined theoretical knowledge with practical applications in fields ranging from navigation and engineering to agriculture and medicine. Their teachers developed innovative methods for conveying complex concepts through visual demonstrations, hands-on experiments, and collaborative projects that engage students actively in the learning process. This approach to scientific education produced graduates who could both understand existing knowledge and contribute to advancing the frontiers of human understanding. The artistic programs that flourished in Sea People educational institutions created opportunities for creative expression while preserving and transmitting cultural traditions from multiple sources. Students received training in various artistic media, including sculpture, painting, textile production, and metalworking, learning both traditional techniques and innovative approaches that reflected their community's multicultural heritage. This artistic education contributed to the distinctive aesthetic traditions that would influence Mediterranean cultural development for generations. Here at Obscure Histories, we find particularly remarkable how Sea People educational systems managed to balance preservation of valuable traditional knowledge with encouragement of innovative thinking and creative problem solving. Their success in creating learning environments that honored the past while preparing students for uncertain futures provides valuable insights into educational approaches that remain relevant for contemporary societies. Military training programs that evolve Sea People communities represented within significant advances over conventional approaches to warrior preparation, emphasizing discipline, strategic thinking, and ethical conduct alongside traditional martial skills. Rather than simply teaching young men to fight effectively, these programs developed comprehensive curricula that addressed logistics, engineering, diplomacy, and administration necessary for military leadership in complex political environments. The holistic approach to military education produced officers who could coordinate large-scale operations while maintaining positive relationships with civilian populations. The tactical innovations developed through Sea People military training reflected systematic analysis of combat experiences and strategic challenges encountered during their expansion and settlement phases. Instructors combined practical battlefield knowledge with theoretical understanding of military principles to create training programs that prepared warriors for diverse combat situations. This evidence-based approach to military education enabled continuous improvement in tactical effectiveness while reducing casualties and increasing mission success rates. Physical conditioning programs implemented within Sea People military institutions incorporated advanced understanding of human physiology and athletic performance that exceeded contemporary approaches to warrior preparation. Their training regimens balanced strength development with endurance conditioning, agility enhancement, and injury prevention in ways that produced warriors capable of sustained performance under demanding conditions. These fitness innovations influenced military training throughout the Mediterranean region and contributed to more effective approaches to physical preparation. Weapons training provided within Sea People military institutions emphasized proficiency with diverse armaments while developing tactical flexibility necessary for success against various opponents employing different fighting styles. Students received instruction in swordwork, spearfighting, archery, and siege operations, learning both individual combat skills and coordinated unit tactics. This comprehensive approach to weapons training produced versatile warriors capable of adapting to changing battlefield conditions. Leadership development programs integrated within Sea People military education address the complex challenges of commanding diverse forces while maintaining unit cohesion and operational effectiveness. Future officers receive training in personnel management, strategic planning, resource allocation, and decision-making under pressure. These leadership programs produced military commanders capable of inspiring loyalty while achieving tactical objectives through efficient utilization of available resources. The engineering instruction provided within Sea People military institutions covered fortification construction, siege techniques, and logistical systems necessary for sustained military operations across extended territories. Students learned to design defensive works, construct siege equipment, and organize supply lines that could support large forces operating far from their home bases. This technical education produced military engineers whose capabilities significantly enhanced the effectiveness of Sea People military forces. Naval warfare training that developed within Sea People institutions represented the most advanced maritime military education available in the ancient Mediterranean, reflecting their extensive experience with seaborne operations and amphibious assaults. Students received instruction in ship handling, naval tactics, coastal assault techniques, and maritime logistics necessary for projecting military power across water barriers. This specialized training produced naval commanders whose expertise enabled Sea People communities to maintain their maritime advantages. Intelligence gathering and analysis programs incorporated within Sea People military education addressed the crucial importance of information in military planning and strategic decision-making. Students learned reconnaissance techniques, counterintelligence procedures, and analytical methods for evaluating enemy capabilities and intentions. This emphasis on intelligence education produced military leaders who could make informed decisions based on accurate assessment of strategic situations. Diplomatic and negotiation training provided within Sea People military institutions recognized that military leaders often served as representatives of their communities in interactions with foreign powers and potential allies. Officers received instruction in diplomatic protocols, cultural sensitivity, and negotiation strategies that enabled them to conduct effective diplomatic missions while maintaining military readiness. This integration of diplomatic and military training produced leaders capable of pursuing both military and peaceful solutions to strategic challenges. The medical training programs that developed within Sea People communities represented significant advances in healthcare education that combined theoretical knowledge with practical clinical experience in ways that exceeded contemporary medical instruction. Their medical schools attracted students from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating learning environments where future healers could engage with diverse therapeutic traditions while developing skills necessary for effective medical practice. Anatomical instruction provided within Sea People medical institutions incorporated systematic dissection and observation that advanced understanding of human physiology beyond anything previously available in Mediterranean medical education. Students received hands-on training in surgical techniques, wound treatment, and disease diagnosis through direct examination of patients under supervision of experienced practitioners. This empirical approach to medical education produced healers whose clinical capabilities significantly exceeded those of traditionally trained physicians. Pharmaceutical programs developed within Sea People medical institutions combined knowledge of medicinal plants and therapeutic compounds gathered from multiple cultural sources with systematic testing of treatment effectiveness. Students learned to identify, prepare, and administer various medications while understanding their proper dosages and potential side effects. This scientific approach to pharmaceutical education produced healers capable of providing safe and effective medical treatments. Surgical training provided within Sea People medical institutions emphasized precision, sterile technique, and patient care that represented significant advances over contemporary surgical practice. Students received intensive instruction in various surgical procedures while learning proper use of surgical instruments and post-operative patient management. This specialized training produced surgeons whose skills enabled them to perform complex operations with higher success rates than previously achieved. Public health programs integrated within Sea People medical education address the crucial importance of preventive medicine and community health management for maintaining population welfare. Students learned about disease transmission strategies, sanitation practices, and health promotion that could prevent illness outbreaks and improve overall community health outcomes. This population-focused approach to medical education produced health administrators capable of implementing effective public health policies. The commercial education systems that flourished within Sea People communities created unprecedented opportunities for training in business management, international trade, and financial administration that supported the growth of sophisticated market economies. Their commercial schools attracted students from across the Mediterranean world, providing comprehensive instruction in accounting, contract law, market analysis, and cross-cultural business practices necessary for success in international commerce. Accounting and financial management instruction provided within Sea People commercial institutions incorporated advanced mathematical techniques and record-keeping systems that enabled precise tracking of complex business transactions across multiple currencies and jurisdictions. Students learned to maintain detailed financial records, calculate profits and losses, and analyze business performance in ways that supported informed decision-making. This technical training produced business administrators whose capabilities significantly enhanced commercial efficiency. International trade programs developed within Sea People commercial institutions addressed the complex challenges of conducting business across cultural boundaries while navigating diverse legal systems and commercial customs. Students received instruction in foreign languages, cultural practices, diplomatic protocols, and trade regulations that prepared them for successful careers in international commerce. This cross-cultural training produced merchants capable of building lasting business relationships across diverse markets. Market analysis and strategic planning instruction provided within Sea People commercial institutions incorporated systematic approaches to understanding consumer preferences, competitive conditions, and economic trends that influenced business success. Students learned to gather and analyze market information, identify business opportunities, and develop strategic plans that could adapt to changing economic conditions. This analytical training produced business leaders capable of making informed, strategic decisions. Contract negotiation and legal compliance programs integrated within Sea People commercial education address the crucial importance of understanding legal frameworks and contractual obligations in international business relationships. Students receive training in commercial law, dispute resolution procedures, and contract negotiation strategies that enabled them to protect their interests while maintaining positive business relationships. This legal education produced merchants whose business practices enhanced trust and reliability in Mediterranean commerce. The technological workshops that operated within Sea People communities served dual functions as production facilities and educational institutions, providing hands-on training in various crafts and technical skills while maintaining high standards of product quality. These workshops attracted students and apprentices from throughout the Mediterranean region, creating learning environments where traditional techniques could be preserved and transmitted while encouraging innovation and improvement. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to be fascinated by how Sea People communities managed to create educational systems that could simultaneously preserve valuable traditional knowledge while encouraging innovation and adaptation to changing circumstances. Their success in balancing continuity with change provides valuable insights into educational approaches that remain relevant for societies navigating rapid technological and social transformation. Metallurgical training provided within Sea People workshops incorporated advanced techniques for working with various metals while developing new alloys and manufacturing processes that exceeded contemporary metalworking capabilities. Students received intensive instruction in smelting, forging, casting, and finishing techniques while learning proper use of specialized tools and equipment. This technical education produced craftsmen whose products commanded premium prices in Mediterranean markets while advancing metallurgical knowledge. Textile production programs developed within Sea People workshops combined traditional weaving and dyeing techniques with innovative approaches to fiber processing and fabric decoration that created distinctive products reflecting their multicultural heritage. Students learned complex weaving patterns, advanced dyeing procedures, and decorative techniques that produced textiles of exceptional beauty and quality. This artistic and technical training contributed to the reputation of Sea People textiles throughout the Mediterranean world. Ceramic arts instruction provided within Sea People workshops incorporated both functional and decorative pottery production while exploring innovative glazing techniques and artistic designs that reflected diverse cultural influences. Students received training in clay preparation, forming techniques, firing procedures, and surface decoration that enabled them to produce both utilitarian vessels and artistic works. This comprehensive ceramic education contributed to the distinctive pottery traditions associated with Sea People communities. Shipbuilding programs that operated within Sea People workshops represented the most advanced maritime construction training available in the ancient Mediterranean, reflecting their extensive experience with vessel design and construction techniques. Students received instruction in hull design, structural engineering, sail configuration, and rigging systems while learning to use specialized shipbuilding tools and materials. This technical education produced shipwrights whose vessels enabled Sea People communities to maintain their maritime advantages. Construction and architectural training provided within Sea People workshops combined traditional building techniques with innovative approaches to structural engineering and architectural design that created distinctive building styles reflecting their multicultural influences. Students learned stone cutting, timber framing, masonry construction, and architectural planning while developing skills necessary for both practical construction and aesthetic design. This comprehensive construction education contributed to the architectural achievements that characterize Sea People settlements. The agricultural research institutions that developed within Sea People communities created unprecedented opportunities for systematic investigation of farming techniques, crop, and livestock management that advanced development agricultural knowledge throughout the Mediterranean region. These facilities combine theoretical research with practical experimentation, providing training for future farmers and agricultural administrators, while developing innovations that increased food production and improved crop quality. Plant breeding programs conducted within Sea People agricultural institutions incorporated systematic approaches to crop improvement that combined traditional selection techniques with careful observation and record-keeping that advanced understanding of plant genetics. Researchers developed new crop varieties that exhibited improved yields, disease resistance, and nutritional content while adapting existing crops to diverse growing conditions. These breeding innovations contributed to agricultural productivity throughout Mediterranean farming communities. Soil management research pursued within Sea People agricultural institutions addressed the crucial importance of maintaining soil fertility and preventing erosion through sustainable farming practices. Investigators developed new approaches to composting, crop rotation, and land management that could maintain productive agriculture while preserving long-term soil health. This research produced knowledge that supported sustainable agricultural development throughout the Mediterranean region. Livestock breeding and management programs developed within Sea People agricultural institutions combined traditional animal husbandry practices with systematic approaches to genetic improvement and herd management that increase productivity while maintaining animal health. Students received training in breeding selection, nutrition management, disease prevention, and livestock handling that enabled them to maintain productive herds while developing superior breeding stock. This comprehensive livestock education contributed to improved animal husbandry throughout Mediterranean farming communities. Irrigation and water management instruction provided within Sea People agricultural institutions incorporated advanced understanding of hydraulic principles and water conservation techniques that enabled efficient agricultural production even under challenging environmental conditions. Students learned to design and construct irrigation systems, manage water resources, and implement conservation practices that maximized agricultural productivity while minimizing water waste. This technical education produced agricultural engineers whose capabilities significantly enhanced farming productivity. The legal institutions that flourished within Sea People communities created comprehensive systems for legal education and professional development that addressed the complex challenges of governing multicultural populations while maintaining justice and social order. Their legal schools attracted students from throughout the Mediterranean world, providing instruction in jurisprudence, legal procedure, and ethical practice that produced capable and trustworthy legal professionals. Jurisprudence programs developed within Sea People legal institutions incorporated comparative legal analysis that examined diverse legal traditions while developing principles and procedures suitable for governing multicultural communities. Students received instruction in legal theory, case analysis, and precedent research while learning to navigate complex legal questions involving different cultural backgrounds and legal traditions. This comprehensive legal education produced jurists whose expertise enabled effective legal administration. Legal procedure and court administration training provided within Sea People legal institutions address the practical aspects of conducting trials, managing legal proceedings, and administering justice systems that could handle complex cases involving multiple jurisdictions and cultural contexts, room procedures, evidence evaluation. Students learned court and case management while developing skills necessary for efficient legal administration. This practical training produced legal administrators whose capabilities enhanced the effectiveness of justice systems. Contract law and commercial legal training incorporated within Sea People legal education addressed the growing importance of commercial relationships and business agreements in their trade-based economies. Students received instruction in contract formation, commercial law principles, and dispute resolution procedures that enabled them to serve business communities effectively while maintaining legal standards. This specialized training produced commercial lawyers whose expertise supported business development throughout Mediterranean trading networks. Diplomatic law and international legal relations programs developed within Sea People legal institutions address the complex challenges of managing relationships between different political entities while maintaining peace and cooperation. Students received instruction in treaty negotiation, diplomatic immunity, and international dispute resolution that prepared them for careers in diplomatic service and international administration. This international legal education produced diplomats whose expertise contributed to peaceful relations throughout the Mediterranean world. The medical research institutions that operated within Sea People communities created systematic approaches to advancing healthcare knowledge while providing comprehensive medical education that exceeded contemporary standards throughout the Mediterranean region. These facilities combined theoretical instruction with practical clinical experience producing healers whose capabilities significantly improved health outcomes while advancing medical understanding. Clinical research programs conducted within Sea People medical institutions incorporated systematic observation and documentation of patient cases that advanced understanding of disease processes and treatment effectiveness. Medical researchers maintained detailed records of symptoms, treatments, and outcomes while comparing different therapeutic approaches to identify most effective medical interventions. This empirical approach to medical research produced knowledge that improved healthcare throughout Mediterranean communities. Pharmaceutical research pursued within Sea People medical institutions combined traditional knowledge of medicinal plants with systematic testing of therapeutic compounds that advanced understanding of drug effectiveness and safety. Researchers investigated proper dosages, preparation methods, and potential side effects while developing new medications from diverse plant sources. This scientific approach to pharmaceutical development produced safer and more effective treatments for various medical conditions. Surgical technique development programs incorporated within Sea People medical institutions emphasized innovation and precision in surgical procedures while maintaining high standards for patient care and safety. Medical practitioners experimented with new surgical approaches while carefully documenting procedures and outcomes to identify most effective techniques. This systematic approach to surgical development produced advances in surgical capability that saved lives and reduced suffering. Public health research conducted within Sea People medical institutions addressed the crucial importance of preventing disease outbreaks and maintaining community health through systematic investigation of disease transmission and prevention strategies. Researchers studied sanitation practices, nutritional requirements, and environmental factors that influence population health, while developing policies and procedures that could prevent illness. This population-focused research contributed to improved health outcomes throughout Mediterranean communities. Here at Obscure Histories, we find the Sea People's approach to education and knowledge development particularly impressive because it demonstrates how systematic investment in human development can create competitive advantages that enable communities to thrive even under challenging circumstances. Their comprehensive approach to education and training provides valuable lessons for contemporary societies seeking to build knowledge-based economies and adaptive institutions. The philosophical schools that emerged within Sea People communities addressed fundamental questions about human nature, social organization, and ethical behavior that arose from their unique experiences as multicultural societies navigating complex political and economic challenges. Their philosophers developed theoretical frameworks that could accommodate cultural diversity while providing guidance for individual and collective decision-making in rapidly changing circumstances. Ethical philosophy programs developed within Sea People intellectual institutions examined questions about moral behavior and social responsibility that emerged from their experiences governing diverse populations with different value systems and cultural traditions. Philosophers investigated principles of justice, fairness, and mutual obligation while developing ethical frameworks that could guide decision-making in complex, multicultural environments. This ethical inquiry produced philosophical insights that influenced moral thinking throughout the Mediterranean world. Political philosophy research pursued within Sea People intellectual communities addressed the complex challenges of creating governmental systems that could effectively govern diverse populations while maintaining legitimacy and popular support. Philosophers examined different approaches to political organization while developing theories about representation, authority, and civic participation that reflected their practical experiences with multicultural governance. This political inquiry contributed to governmental innovation throughout Mediterranean civilizations. Social philosophy investigations conducted within Sea People intellectual institutions explored questions about community formation, cultural integration, and collective identity that arose from their experiences creating unified societies from diverse population groups. Philosophers studied processes of social cohesion and cultural synthesis while developing theoretical frameworks for understanding how different groups could maintain their distinctiveness while participating in shared institutions. This social inquiry provided insights that influenced community development throughout the Mediterranean region. Natural philosophy programs that flourished within Sea People intellectual communities combined theoretical speculation with empirical observation to advance understanding of physical phenomena and natural processes. Philosophers investigated questions about causation, natural laws, and the structure of reality while conducting systematic observations and experiments that tested their theoretical propositions. This scientific philosophy contributed to the development of more sophisticated approaches to natural investigation. The artistic institutions that developed within Sea People communities created unprecedented opportunities for creative expression and aesthetic education that combined elements from multiple cultural traditions while developing distinctive new artistic styles. Their art schools attracted students from throughout the Mediterranean world, providing comprehensive instruction in various artistic media while encouraging innovation and cultural synthesis. Sculptural arts programs developed within Sea People artistic institutions incorporated diverse sculptural traditions while exploring innovative approaches to form, material, and artistic expression that reflected their multicultural heritage. Students received instruction in stone carving, bronze casting, and clay modeling, while learning both traditional techniques and experimental approaches to sculptural creation. This comprehensive sculptural education contributed to the distinctive sculptural traditions associated with Sea People communities. Painting and decorative arts instruction provided within Sea People artistic institutions combined diverse painting traditions with innovative approaches to color, composition, and surface decoration that created distinctive visual styles. Students learned fresco painting, panel painting, and various decorative techniques while exploring new approaches to artistic expression that reflected their cultural synthesis. This artistic education contributed to the development of distinctive Sea People aesthetic traditions. Musical arts programs that operated within Sea People artistic institutions incorporated diverse musical traditions while developing new approaches to composition, performance, and musical education that reflected their multicultural influences. Students received instruction in various musical instruments, vocal techniques, and compositional methods while learning both traditional repertoires and innovative musical approaches. This musical education contributed to the rich musical traditions that characterize Sea People cultural life. Literary arts instruction provided within Sea People artistic institutions addressed the challenges of creating written literature that could appeal to diverse audiences while preserving and transmitting cultural traditions from multiple sources. Students learned various literary forms, narrative techniques, and poetic structures while developing skills necessary for creating original works that reflected their cultural synthesis. This literary education contributed to the development of distinctive Sea People literary traditions. The commercial training institutions that operated within Sea People communities created comprehensive programs for business education that addressed the complex challenges of international commerce while providing practical skills necessary for success in competitive markets. Their business schools attracted students from throughout the Mediterranean world, providing instruction in various aspects of commercial activity while emphasizing ethical business practices and cross-cultural competency. International commerce programs developed within Sea People commercial institutions incorporated extensive instruction in foreign languages, cultural customs, and business practices that prepared students for successful careers in international trade. Students learned to navigate diverse legal systems, currency exchange procedures, and commercial regulations, while developing skills necessary for building lasting business relationships across cultural boundaries. This international training produced merchants whose expertise contributed to Mediterranean commercial development. Financial management instruction provided within Sea People commercial institutions addressed the growing complexity of business finance and investment management in increasingly sophisticated market economies. Students receive training in accounting procedures, investment analysis, and risk management while learning to utilize various financial instruments and banking services. This financial education produced business administrators whose capabilities enhanced commercial efficiency and profitability. Market research and strategic planning programs incorporated within Sea People commercial education addressed the crucial importance of understanding market conditions and competitive environments in making sound business decisions. Students learn to gather and analyze market information, identify business opportunities, and develop strategic plans that could adapt to changing economic conditions. This analytical training produced business leaders capable of achieving sustained commercial success. Quality control and customer service instruction, provided within Sea People commercial institutions, emphasize quality and customer the importance of maintaining product satisfaction in building successful long-term business relationships. Students learned quality assessment procedures, customer communication techniques, and service management practices that enabled them to build reputations for reliability and excellence. This customer-focused training contributed to the commercial success of Sea People business enterprises. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to be impressed by the Sea People's systematic approach to education and professional development, which created human capital that enabled their communities to compete successfully in complex and rapidly changing environments. Their comprehensive educational systems provide valuable models for contemporary societies seeking to build adaptive capacity and competitive advantages through investment in human development. The remarkable achievements of Sea People communities in creating sustainable and prosperous societies from the ashes of Bronze Age collapse demonstrates their extraordinary capacity for institutional innovation and adaptive governance. Their success in transforming themselves from displaced populations into influential Mediterranean powers required developing entirely new approaches to political organization, economic management, and social coordination that could accommodate the unprecedented challenges of their multicultural circumstances. The governmental structures that evolved within Sea People settlements represented genuine innovations in political science, combining elements from various governmental traditions they had encountered during their migrations with creative solutions to problems that had never before confronted Mediterranean civilizations. Their political systems needed to balance the competing demands of diverse ethnic groups while maintaining unified decision-making capabilities necessary for effective community leadership. This challenge required developing new concepts of citizenship, representation, and political authority that could transcend traditional tribal or ethnic boundaries. Archaeological evidence from Sea People political centers reveals sophisticated understanding of administrative organization and bureaucratic efficiency that enabled them to govern complex societies with remarkable effectiveness. Their governmental buildings incorporated specialized spaces for different administrative functions, suggesting systematic approaches to public administration that separated legislative, judicial, and executive responsibilities. The careful planning evident in these facilities demonstrates recognition that effective governance required both symbolic authority and practical administrative capability. The legal codes that emerged from Sea People political innovation addressed unprecedented challenges in jurisprudence, creating frameworks for resolving disputes between individuals from different cultural backgrounds with potentially conflicting legal traditions. Their legal scholars developed principles of universal justice that could transcend cultural particularities while maintaining respect for diverse customs and practices. This approach to law required sophisticated theoretical understanding of legal philosophy combined with practical wisdom about human nature and social dynamics. Diplomatic protocols developed by Sea People political leaders established new standards for international relations that emphasized mutual respect and practical cooperation rather than traditional patterns of domination and submission. Their approach to diplomacy incorporated cultural sensitivity and flexible negotiation strategies that could accommodate different value systems and political structures. These diplomatic innovations created frameworks for peaceful coexistence that influenced international relations throughout the Mediterranean world for generations. The economic theories that emerged from Sea People commercial experience represented significant advances in understanding market dynamics, resource allocation, and wealth creation that exceeded contemporary economic knowledge throughout the Mediterranean region. Their merchants and administrators developed sophisticated insights into supply and demand relationships, investment strategies, and risk management that enabled them to create prosperous economies despite challenging circumstances. These economic innovations provided foundations for more sophisticated market systems that would characterize later Mediterranean development. Financial institutions that developed within Sea People communities created new approaches to banking, credit, and investment that facilitated large-scale commercial operations across multiple jurisdictions and currency systems. Their understanding of monetary policy, exchange rate management, and capital allocation enabled complex business arrangements that would have been impossible under simpler economic systems. These financial innovations supported the growth of sophisticated commercial networks that connected distant regions and cultures. The manufacturing systems that flourished in Sea People workshops represented significant advances in production organization and quality control that created competitive advantages in Mediterranean markets. Their approach to industrial management balanced efficiency with craftsmanship, enabling mass production of high-quality goods that could compete successfully with products from established manufacturing centers. These industrial innovations contributed to economic prosperity that supported cultural and political achievements. Agricultural innovations developed by Sea People farming communities combined traditional Mediterranean practices with techniques brought from their diverse regions of origin, creating farming systems that could support larger populations while maintaining soil fertility and environmental sustainability. Their approach to agricultural management incorporated systematic crop rotation, advanced irrigation techniques, and integrated pest management that increased productivity while reducing environmental impact. These agricultural advances contributed to food security that enabled population growth and economic development. The transportation networks established by Sea People engineers created unprecedented opportunities for rapid movement of people, goods, and information across vast distances, facilitating economic integration and political cooperation throughout territories. Their infrastructure investments incorporated advanced engineering principles and strategic planning that maximized efficiency while minimizing construction costs and maintenance requirements. These transportation achievements supported economic growth and cultural exchange that strengthened Sea People communities. Urban planning concepts pioneered in Sea People settlements created new standards for city design that balanced military security with commercial efficiency and residential comfort in ways that influenced urban development throughout the Mediterranean region. Their cities incorporated advanced water management systems, waste disposal facilities, and public spaces that supported both economic activity and community life. These urban innovations contributed to the quality of life that enabled Sea People communities to attract and retain talented individuals from diverse backgrounds. The technological workshops that operated within Sea People communities served as centers of innovation that attracted inventors and craftsmen from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating collaborative environments that encouraged experimentation and creative problem-solving. Their facilities combined traditional techniques with experimental approaches that produced breakthrough development, surgery, engineering in metal, and manufacturing. These technological achievements provided competitive advantages that supported Sea People prosperity and influence. Military innovations developed by Sea People commanders created more effective approaches to defense and security that could protect their communities while maintaining positive relationships with neighboring civilizations. Their military reforms emphasized professional training, strategic thinking, and ethical conduct that produced disciplined forces capable of defending their territories without becoming sources of internal oppression or external aggression. These military developments influenced defense planning throughout the Mediterranean world. The educational institutions that flourished within Sea People communities established new standards for learning that emphasized practical skills, critical thinking, and cross-cultural understanding necessary for success in their complex, multicultural environments. Their educational philosophy combined theoretical knowledge with practical application, producing graduates capable of contributing effectively to community development while maintaining appreciation for cultural diversity. These educational innovations influenced scholarly development throughout the Mediterranean region. Religious institutions that evolved in Sea People settlements created inclusive spiritual frameworks that honored diverse traditions while building community cohesion and shared purpose among ethnically diverse populations. Their approach to religious life emphasized personal spiritual development and community service rather than rigid doctrinal conformity. These religious innovations contributed to social stability and cultural richness that characterized Sea People communities. The cultural institutions that emerged within Sea People societies created new forms of artistic expression, intellectual inquiry, and social organization that enriched Mediterranean civilization and provided models for later development. Their emphasis on creativity, excellence, and cultural exchange fostered environments where human potential could flourish. These cultural achievements contributed to the aesthetic and intellectual heritage that would influence Mediterranean development for centuries. Scientific research conducted within Sea People communities advanced understanding in fields ranging from astronomy and mathematics to medicine and natural history through systematic observation and experimentation. Their scholars developed empirical methodologies that combined theoretical analysis with practical investigation, producing knowledge that could improve community life while advancing human understanding. These scientific achievements contributed to intellectual foundations that supported later Mediterranean scholarly traditions. Here at Obscure Histories, we find the Sea People's comprehensive approach to institution building particularly remarkable because it demonstrates how human communities can create entirely new social, political, and economic systems when existing frameworks prove inadequate to changing circumstances. Their success provides valuable insights into processes of institutional innovation that remain relevant for contemporary societies facing their own transformational challenges. The philosophical schools that developed within Sea People intellectual communities addressed fundamental questions about human nature, social organization, and ethical behavior that emerged from their unique experiences governing multicultural societies. Their thinkers developed theoretical frameworks that could accommodate cultural diversity while providing practical guidance for individual and collective decision-making. These philosophical contributions influenced intellectual development throughout the Mediterranean world and provided foundations for more sophisticated political theory. Environmental management practices implemented by Sea People communities demonstrated sophisticated understanding of ecological relationships and sustainable resource use that enabled long-term prosperity without environmental degradation. Their approach to natural resource management balanced immediate needs with future requirements while maintaining ecological balance. These conservation innovations provided models for environmental stewardship that influenced resource management practices throughout the Mediterranean region. The legal education programs that operated within Sea People institutions created new approaches to professional legal training that emphasized practical skills and ethical reasoning, while preparing legal practitioners to serve diverse communities effectively. Their legal schools combined theoretical knowledge with hands-on experience in ways that produced capable and ethical legal professionals. These educational innovations influenced legal education throughout the Mediterranean world. Commercial arbitration systems developed by Sea People merchants created reliable mechanisms for resolving business disputes that facilitated trade growth while maintaining fair and efficient commercial relationships across cultural boundaries. Their approach to commercial dispute resolution emphasized expertise, impartiality, and practical solutions, rather than prolonged litigation. These commercial innovations supported trade development and economic integration throughout Mediterranean commercial networks. The cultural preservation efforts undertaken by Sea People communities ensured that valuable traditions and knowledge from their diverse backgrounds were maintained even as new synthetic cultures emerged from their multicultural interactions. Their systematic approach to documenting and transmitting cultural information created archives that preserved important elements of Mediterranean cultural heritage. These preservation efforts contributed to cultural continuity that enriched later Mediterranean civilizations. Conflict resolution mechanisms developed by Sea People leaders created alternatives to warfare that enabled peaceful settlement of disputes while maintaining community honor and dignity for all parties involved. Their approach to conflict management emphasized negotiation, mediation, and compromise rather than domination or submission. These diplomatic innovations influenced approaches to dispute resolution throughout the Mediterranean world and contributed to more stable international relationships. The social welfare systems that evolved within Sea People communities provided support for vulnerable populations while maintaining incentives for productive contribution to community life. Their approach to social assistance balanced compassion with practical considerations about resource allocation and community sustainability. These social innovations created more stable and cohesive communities that could better withstand external pressures and internal challenges. Public health measures implemented by Sea People settlements created healthier living conditions that supported population growth, while reducing disease transmission through systematic attention to sanitation and preventive medicine. Their understanding of hygiene principles and disease prevention enabled them to maintain urban environments that promoted community well-being. These public health innovations contributed to demographic expansion that supported economic and cultural development. The maritime technologies perfected by Sea People shipbuilders and navigators enabled exploration and colonization efforts that expanded geographical knowledge while creating new opportunities for trade and cultural exchange. Their advances in ship design, navigation techniques, and maritime logistics provided capabilities that supported Mediterranean expansion into previously unknown regions. These technological achievements contributed to the geographical understanding that enabled later Mediterranean civilizations to develop broader perspectives. Agricultural sciences developed by Sea People researchers produced new understanding of plant biology, soil chemistry, and ecological relationships that increased food production while improving nutritional outcomes for their communities. Their systematic approach to agricultural experimentation and documentation created knowledge bases that supported farming development throughout the Mediterranean region. These scientific achievements contributed to food security that enabled population growth and cultural advancement. The manufacturing standards established by Sea People workshops created quality control systems that ensured consistent product specifications and performance characteristics, while building reputations for reliability and excellence. Their approach to production management established benchmarks for craftsmanship that influenced manufacturing practices throughout the Mediterranean world. These standards enabled Sea People goods to compete successfully in international markets while supporting local employment. International trade relationships developed by Sea People merchants created new patterns of commercial exchange that connected previously isolated regions while facilitating the spread of goods, technologies, and ideas across vast distances. Their trading networks operated with remarkable efficiency and reliability, maintaining consistent quality standards that encouraged long-term business relationships. These commercial achievements supported economic growth throughout the Mediterranean region. The architectural achievements of Sea People builders created structures that combined aesthetic appeal with structural integrity and functional efficiency in ways that influenced building practices throughout Mediterranean civilizations. Their innovations in construction techniques and design principles enabled them to create impressive buildings while optimizing resource use and construction time. These architectural developments contributed to the physical infrastructure that supported community prosperity. Military alliance systems developed by Sea People leaders created networks of mutual support that enabled smaller communities to maintain security while focusing resources on productive activities rather than defensive preparations. Their approach to military cooperation emphasized shared responsibility and mutual benefit rather than domination or subordination. These strategic innovations influenced military thinking throughout the Mediterranean world and contributed to more stable security arrangements. The technological innovation networks that emerged among Sea People communities facilitated rapid development and dissemination of new techniques and improvements that accelerated technological progress throughout their territories. Their collaborative approach to technological development created environments where innovation could flourish while ensuring that beneficial discoveries were widely shared. These innovation systems contributed to technological advancement across the Mediterranean region. Social integration practices developed by Sea People communities created frameworks for peaceful coexistence among diverse populations that honored different traditions while building shared identity and common purpose. Their approach to social cohesion balanced respect for cultural distinctiveness with promotion of community unity. These social innovations provided models for multicultural society that influenced social development throughout the Mediterranean world. Here at Obscure Histories, we continue to marvel at the Sea People's remarkable transformation from agents of destruction into architects of renewal, demonstrating humanity's extraordinary capacity for creative adaptation and institutional innovation. Their story provides enduring inspiration for contemporary societies seeking to build more inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous communities in our own rapidly changing world. The legacy of Sea People achievements extends far beyond their immediate historical context to influence the development of Mediterranean civilization in ways that continue to shape our understanding of human potential and social possibility. Their success in creating thriving communities from apparently catastrophic circumstances demonstrates that even the most challenging historical moments can become opportunities for creative innovation and positive transformation when human communities respond with courage, wisdom, and collaborative determination. The Sea Peoples remain one of archaeology's most compelling enigmas, their story woven into the very fabric of Mediterranean transformation during one of history's most turbulent epochs. From mysterious raiders emerging from unknown waters to sophisticated builders of new civilizations, they demonstrated humanity's remarkable capacity for adaptation and renewal in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Their legacy lives on in the cultural foundations they helped establish, reminding us that even in our darkest hours, the seeds of future greatness often lie hidden within present struggles. Here at Obscure Histories, we hope their extraordinary journey continues to inspire us all